Mr. City Manager, how you doing over there today?
I am good, thank you.
Good, good. Today is the 10th day of March. We're sitting at the Amarillo City Hall Council Chamber. We're going to walk ourselves into a budget workshop here where we're going to discuss some directions and some things. So I'll officially call us to order, recognizing a quorum, and hand it over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of council, I appreciate your attendance today. I know this is earlier than normal for a council meeting, but I appreciate you all being here today so we can cover a lot of budget ground in preparation for the budget process this summer. Also in the room today, of course, we have our city management team, but also behind me we have a lot of our experts in our departments. Department heads are here today. Eventually, when we get down to the cost recovery section, we will cover specific department recommendations or suggestions or ideas for possible cost recovery opportunities. And I will try my best to power through those on my own, but as you have questions, things that I can't answer, I'm going to quickly defer to the expert. And so they are here to help us with that. So with this, I think you'll recall back on February 12th, I gave you all this report, 23 pages for the pre-budget workshop. I sent it back out again Friday. My goal today is to kind of go in order of that. Those are the topics we will cover today in today's presentation. So looking at, of course, I sent these slides out to you all on Friday as well. So I know you guys had a lot of things to look over before today's council meeting. So hopefully you had a chance to glance over the slides, but hopefully you had a chance to glance over the report before this. My intent today, I'm not going to regurgitate everything in this report here. I think I'm just going to try to power through it and try to get to the highlights. I have a number of slides today. I'm going to do some talking, but my goal is to, at certain points in time, stop and get your direction. One of the things I am asking for today, as we look at some of these topics here, is direction, tangible, specific direction, so that we know as staff where you want us to go, what you want us to do as we prepare for the budget process this summer. So that's what I'll be asking today. Now, obviously, I'm not going to force you. I'm not trying to force you to give me a decision. So if you need time, you need additional time, we can come back in a couple of weeks or 4 weeks, and we can do that on some of these topics here. But I think, I know you guys have had a month or so to work on this. I know many of us have talked one-on-one about many of these topics here, but whether it's VADR, whether it's cost recovery, whether it's presentation this summer. So many of y'all have been talking about this for about 6 months or so. So I'm hoping today we might be able to cover a lot of ground and get some good direction for staff and myself. On the agenda today, a few of the topics we're going to cover, again, following along with my report. I'll be, again, discussing about a new chief financial officer. Then we're going to work our way backward in time. We're going to go forward to fiscal year 27-28, 2 years from now. I'm going to give a little bit of conversation, a little bit of vision when it comes to that budget process. That assumes a new CFO in place and having had about a year under her belt. We're then going to back up a few months and go to November, and we'll look at a possible voter-approved tax rate election, or what they like to call a VADR. And we'll be discussing that. That has been a topic that several of you have talked about with me. That's something that we even talked about in last year's budget cycle as we looked at the constraints that we're up against as a city while trying to provide services to our taxpayers and our patrons of our community. We will then back up even more to the budget presentation this summer. As you know, under state law, we will present to you all a budget around July or August or so. But my goal for today is to get some guidance from you all as to what you would like how you would like that to be presented to you, whether it's certain types of reports, data, information, even specific like actuals, percentages, forecasts, those kind of things. My goal today, and we have people here taking notes today, is to get from you all some direction that how you would like to see the budget process work this summer. Now, with all that being said, and I'll talk about this in a moment here, we have a new CFO coming on board. And she'll be taking lots of notes. There'll be a lot of lessons learned this summer. Her goal is to use this year as a bridge year to get us into a new budget cycle next year, a new budget process. And I'll talk about that later on the slides as well. Then we'll close today. The majority of my slides, about over half the slides, are on cost recovery opportunities. So the middle three topics there are about property taxes primarily and budget. And then the last one is non-property tax, looking at other revenue streams to help subsidize or diminish the need for property taxes. That is cost recovery opportunities. One of the things, this comes back to the famous golf ball discussion. And so, Councilor Prescott, I appreciate you for that. And so the conversation is, what services are we providing that have a revenue that is not keeping pace with the expense? So we'll be talking about those, and the staff have done an excellent job of giving us some ideas that we can consider today for possible cost recovery opportunities. All right, moving on to Chief Financial Officer. So back on February 24th, I was pleased to announce that Lola Ogunrimi has agreed to take on the role of Chief Financial Officer for the City of Amarillo. We're excited about her coming here. She is tentatively scheduled for April 6th, I think, as a start date. She is moving from Bowie, Maryland, so a long trip to get here, but we are excited to get her started. A few of the things that I've begun to relay to her, and I think actually she may be even watching us today. So I didn't ask her to come today. It's another big trip, so she's either watching right now, or she said she would watch the recording afterwards, so she can start getting her mind ready to go for the budget process this summer. Some of the things that I've asked her to be prepared for, and some things that I'll be sitting down with her more, some of her immediate tasks, immediate responsibilities starting in April when she gets here, is of course the budget. She'll be leading that process as the CFO. I do expect the CFO to be the point person for budget preparation and budget process. That allows me to continue to do my services to the council as city manager, and she is busy behind the scenes working on budget, getting all the work done with departments and with all the numbers together. Parallel to all this, she'll be working on, or maybe towards the end of budget process, working on completing our workday transition. We've been doing that for a few years as we've taken in stages. And so there's a lot of work to be done to finalize the workday financial system transition. She'll be working on that. And of course, as always, one of the key, finance is one of the backbones of the city. It touches every department. And so coordination is critical. So she'll be making connections, forming relationships, getting to know department heads, and so she will have a full plate on her. She'll have a full plate, basically. So with this, I would like to just go ahead and ask on her behalf. This would be a big learning curve for her this summer. I mean, obviously, if I could have brought her here sooner, I would have. She's got a lot to learn in a short amount of time. So as much grace and flexibility the council can give her, that'd be much appreciated, as I will be giving to her as well. She comes to a great team. We have a great team of staff here, from the CMO to the finance department to the staff in the departments, and so they will do a great job of helping her. But again, she has a very critical role that she's taking on that she has to shoulder herself. But we will be right there to help her as much as we can along the way. So we'll be excited to have her here, and she has a lot to learn, and I know she's more than capable of doing that. So we have a good person coming to work for us. In addition to that, looking to the future, again, goes into the next slide here in a moment. One of my goals for her is to be thinking about the next year's budget cycle. Obviously, right now we're in March, going into April. We're not in the final hour, obviously, but at the same time, we're a little late to my goal for a future process for budget. My vision, my goal for a budget process is to get us out of the summer compressed period and more into a January to September timeline. Obviously, audit takes priority during January through March. That is high priority. We have to get that done, especially under SB 1851. We have 180 days to get audits done. And so that has to be the priority. But parallel to all that, I would like for her and her team to be looking at a calendar, a new type of calendar than what we have right now, that brings council more involved in the budget process. And I'll talk about that more shortly. All right, moving on to our next topic here, which is that very thing. So my vision, again, my goal for the CFO is to look at developing a new calendar for the budget process starting in 27-28 cycle. So not this summer, but the next summer. So as she goes through this budget process this year, I'm sure she'll bring some great ideas with her, some different ways of doing things. But a lot of this is going to come from talking to you all, getting to know your preferences, getting to know what you all like to see done, and talking to myself as manager and staff, and getting some direction, getting some ideas, so that come next year she can come with a different way of doing things, or different vision about doing our budget process. And then the key point here that I like to see more of is more council engagement, more city management engagement along the way. So that way, come summertime, when you all are given the budget, again, this is my vision, my goal, when the council is given the budget come summertime, starting next year, you will have already had a few touch points in the process to help influence or guide it toward that point. As you all know, with budgets, we have over 1,000 line items. There's a lot of busy work to be done. Council's time is not best spent going line by line. Council's time is best spent giving policy directions so that we can guide the ship into the harbor. But with this, staff are busy doing all the little things in order to keep this boat rowing and keep this boat going forward. But with this, it'd be nice to get council engagement along the process, along the way. So to do this, again, I see this summer as being more of a bridge year. She will be coming in, again, a big learning curve, a lot to learn in the process. She has to learn Texas state law. She has to learn our process. We still have a fairly new team. They're doing a great job in finance, but still many of them are less than 5 years of experience. And so you wouldn't know that by looking at them, but boy, they work hard and they're doing the best they can to bridge that curve as fast as they can. So again, this summer, she'll be bringing ideas, but we'll get through the summer year, but then looking at ideas to how to redesign our budget process starting next year. All right, so moving on to my third topic today. This will have a few slides here. During the last budget cycle, the City Council, we discussed some of the constraints that we experienced, and there were certain goals that council would like to have seen. There are certain goals that staff would have liked to have seen, but obviously money was a problem. We didn't have the budget room to get everything done. As part of that process, the council did discuss the voter-approved tax rate election, which is a VATR. And so that was discussed, and council, as I recall, they did direct that we would have a conversation early this calendar year in preparation for the summer so that we can make some decisions on, are we going to do this or not? So I have a few slides here to talk about a VATR, and then at the end of these slides, I'd like to then help facilitate a conversation among you to kind of get some direction as to what you would like to do when it comes to a voter-approved tax rate election. A little bit of context. SB 2, 2019, Texas Truth in Taxation Law. A number of things came out of that legislation, but the main thing that impacts us today is a voter approval tax rate caps annual property tax so that it cannot grow beyond 3.5%. That's on the M&O, maintenance and operations side. Now, it's not a simple, clear-cut 3.5%. If you look at the Truth in Taxation form, it's almost 90 lines of calculations that the comptroller and them expect you to complete. So there are certain exceptions that they apply to that. There are certain, this is like when you do your taxes, there are deductibles, there's different things, deductions, there are things there that you do that impact that. But overall, for simplistic purposes, 3.5% is the figure they gave us to work with. Any rate above that must go to the voters for approval. So let's say that the council one year says, you know what, I've seen our expenses, I've seen our goals, the council has a vision for the city, and we don't have enough money. We need 5%. 3.5 is not going to get it done. Between what we want to do for public safety or streets or recreation, it all adds up and I need more money. Well, again, you can do 3.5%. But if you want to go to 5, that extra 1.5 has to go to the voters in November for an election. They have to approve, they have to give you permission to go beyond 3.5% for the M&O. Not INS, but M&O. Now with that, the proposition goes in November. Citizens review it. They decide whether they'd like to approve it or not. If they approve it, you then have the increased property tax value going forward. That is your new base going forward. If it fails, you go back down to the 3.5 voter-approved tax rate point. So you fall back to that point. That is the context of the Truth in Taxation Law. Why does this matter to us today? Why does SB 2 matter? Well, as I think all industries, all businesses, all homes, everyone with a budget understands today, particularly during times of war, during times of economic instability, during times of political shifting back and forth, different president, costs change, inflation occurs. Business does not, cost for business changes year, if not month to month. I mean, I drive a diesel truck. I'm now paying almost $1.50 now than I was a week ago in gas. And so we can see how things change quickly. Unfortunately, so with us, SB 2 caps our ability to raise revenue. Nothing caps your ability to control expenses. So if one year, as simple example, if you were to buy 100 tons of asphalt at a certain price and you do the work, the next year, if costs go up 10% for that same 100 tons, you may be buying 90 tons instead. Our costs are not limited to the revenue cap that we have. So part of that, we hope and pray, and we do the best we can through other programs to try to encourage sales tax, to try to encourage growth and so forth. But those things, as you know, you cannot set a sales tax at a higher rate than you want to. We're already maxed out. You cannot control certain elements. Property tax is the only thing that you have a direct control over. So if sales tax is flattened out, if other revenue streams are flattened out, and if property tax is capped at 3.5%, and your expenses go up 5, 10, 20%, whatever it is, you're looking at either cutting to maintain other services or doing less. That is the simple truth of it. So part of the problem we have with this is, as we have come into, as cities and Texas are seeing more and more, is it is becoming harder and harder to just maintain existing services. It is hard to keep existing staff. It is hard to continue to provide the same service. Contractor prices go up. Consultants go up. Consumables go up. Software is really going up. So that's one thing we're seeing in IT. Rich has told me here recently that we have some renewals that are 50% increases next year. We're scrambling to figure out how we're going to do that. And in today's IT world, IT is now becoming almost a new backbone for entities. If you do not have a strong backbone in IT, your body's going to fail. There's a lot of hackers, a lot of dangers out there, so we have got to stay on the cutting edge when it comes to IT. Otherwise, we could be compromised and our operations could fall flat. So with this, the one mechanism we have available to us, given you are capped at 3.5% for M&O, the one mechanism you have is a voter-approved tax rate election is what you have. And we will be covering that more in the next slides here. Some more, why does this matter? Looking at this, as you all know, you got into office with the goal of serving the public. I think all of us here today, from those who are council to those who are staff, we are here to serve the people. We are here to better their lives. We are here to provide the foundation so that our community can grow, can thrive, and be the best that they can. That is why we're here. No one is here today to make things worse. No one is here today to see our community fail. So with this, we understand that citizens have expectations of us. They expect certain things from the city. As they do the county, the state, the schools and so forth, we have a role in their life. Whether they realize it or not, whether they appreciate it or not, we have a role to play. And with that, as you know, with citizens, they expect the best. They expect things immediate. They expect things to be to the highest quality. They expect professionalism, respect, integrity. Those things, unfortunately, in today's economy are not cheap. Those things are not easy to come by. Those things come with expense with that. So as we continue to see expenses rise at rates that are not subject to the same caps that we have, as we continue to try to maintain services, let alone grow services, I know one thing that we wish to do is to make things even better, to be able to respond faster, to do more, to be more on point. As we try to do these things, as sales tax is growing, which is great, but it's not growing as fast as we want it to. As other fees are either stagnant or flat or have not been updated in years and years, and we'll talk about that in cost recovery a little bit later, as those things are stagnant, our only opportunity available to us is property tax. But again, that is capped. So that is one of the constraints we are experiencing. So a few tangible impacts this has given to us. I know people want to know, okay, Grayson, tell me how. Okay, you say we're constrained. How? I got a few on your screen. I got a few more to tell you today. First off, as the council knows, last year, given our requirement for a balanced budget, given our limitations on property taxes for 3.5%, and given trying to maintain services across the board, we are unable to budget police overtime at where it needs to be, to the sum of over $2 million. So what that requires us to do is that in the other non-police departments, other general fund departments, we have to, as the year goes on, find savings to try to bring that number within budget. Sometimes we succeed and sometimes we don't. Because again, we're trying to maintain services for our community. Last year, the council, I know there were some goals, some vision for what raises to give public safety, and we were unable to achieve that last year. We had goals for what to give for our compensation study for the non-public safety employees. We were unable to achieve all of that last year. We have goals for our IT department. As I said before, we are falling behind in IT. Software is increasing. As I think Rich has told many of you, we cannot do certain things that we need to do today because we were unable to afford what needed to be done in the IT budget. We've had to close facilities, whether it's parks, whether it's park restrooms or whether it's pools, because we've been unable to maintain those services with our revenue stream. Our CIPs mostly depend on the fact that we have interest each year. We're unable to even plan on there being revenue streams to fund CIPs. We have to rely on the hope and prayer that interest rates will allow us to have CIPs. We have to now, as we will see later today, we have to now rely upon COs to fund streets, because we can no longer maintain streets at the level we need to using our operating funds. We have to now depend on the INS to maintain streets, and that's just maintain streets. We have to also subsidize our general fund with our enterprise funds, water, sewer, drainage. Without those funds, general fund will not float. All these things are examples of how our revenue in general fund is not keeping up. Our costs are outpacing our revenue. So with this, one of the things that we can always look at is, I know there's those euphemisms about tightening our belt, cutting costs, doing more with less. I appreciate euphemisms, but I'm tired of euphemisms. I need tangible direction from people. I need to know what it is that we can live without. As a community, what can we do without? What are we willing to let go? What are we willing to cut? Because until I can receive guidance from citizens, from council, from anyone who knows these things, until I can receive guidance on what to cut, then I'm left to the inevitable conclusion that we don't have a cost or expense issue, I have a revenue issue. And that's what we need to try to address. So, with this, one of our recommendations, I know going back to the Vader, we'll be talking about cost recovery items, opportunities later today, but looking at property tax. One of our options available to us today that we can look at to address property tax is a voter-approved tax rate election, or a VATR. Again, as I said before, we're capped at 3.5%. The citizens would have to give us more than that in order to go beyond that. And so, again, as we've talked, many of us have talked one-on-one during the last 6 months or so. I know many of you are familiar with what VATRs are. We have talked about ways of what would make the most sense to take to the taxpayers when it comes to a VATR. So with this, my recommendation to you today, if we were to pursue a VATR, is to make it about public safety. And I'll explain why going on here. Of course, we talked about some of the holes we have in the budget. We talked about some of the compensation limitations we have, and so forth. We've discussed that. I know people may ask today, what did a 3.5% give us last year? So, Grayson, how do you already know today that you need a VATR this summer? Why do I already know that? Well, last year, I had staff run me the numbers, and so last year, a 3.5% gave us $2 million. Thereabouts. The police overtime alone is over $2 million. Compensation, IT, all these things, you start adding them all up, and we greatly exceed $2 million out of the gate. That's why I know a VATR will be needed this summer if we wish to fund everything. Again, I'm always saying that if our goal is to fund all the goals. I'm not saying we have to do all those goals, and I'm not saying to what level of VADR we need to pursue. All I know is that given the previous discussions, the goals, the vision that council has had, that staff would like to see, that citizens have demanded of us, we already know that in order to achieve these combined goals, we would need a VADR to do that. Public safety includes police department, fire department, emergency management, Amarillo Communications Center, which is our dispatch, animal management and welfare, city marshal, municipal court. Those are all of our public safety departments. That is a significant part of our general fund, a significant part of it. Most of the employees are in those areas. Most of our funds go to those areas. A lot of our IT needs are in those areas. Those are very, very costly but very needed departments that we have there. With this, my rationale, I think this aligns with the Council's strategic pillars, financial responsibility and public safety. I believe this addresses some of the core services that many of our residents prioritize, that we hear a lot about. And as I said before, this relieves budget pressure across the general fund for other departments. A few advantages and some challenges to a VADR. Again, I'm not telling you need to do a VADR today. I'm not doing that. I'm just here to relay what VADRs are and the situation that we're up against as based off what I've seen and what I know. So a few advantages to doing a VADR. Again, as I said, it relieves ongoing pressure across the general fund. It allows us to properly budget where things should be at, so that other departments don't have to come in under to make certain things happen. It aligns with your strategic pillars. I believe based off of history with voter turnout when it comes to bond elections and some of the caution that citizens have had towards tax increases, I think this would best align with voter interest for a potential tax increase if they so wished. I think this also leverages our associations, police and fire. I'll be open and blunt about that. I as staff and you to a certain degree are limited as to what you can do for an election. I cannot go out there and say, vote yes or vote no. I have to be neutral. So I cannot champion or campaign any type of election, whether it's a bond or a tax increase. I cannot do that. Associations can. And they have become more active in recent years, which is their right. So there's an opportunity here to partner with existing associations, if they so choose to participate, to do that. And again, this addresses a substantial portion of our general fund. Some challenges. The mechanics of this. We would need to prepare 2 budgets. You have to have the potential VADR budget that the citizens give you in November, but you have to then have the fallback budget in case that does not work out. The 3.5% budget there. So we have to prepare this summer 2 budgets to present to you all this summer. Again, as I said before, our ability to advocate is limited. I cannot advocate for or against a tax increase or an election of any kind. You, to a certain degree, possibly can. We can discuss that. But even you have some limitations. But we as a city cannot do that. So there's a challenge with that. We have to basically present the facts and then hope for a champion to rise up among the community to then champion this. Elections occur in November. We have to then get through 2 months of not knowing if it's going to happen or not. Our fiscal year starts October 1st. So we have to basically assume October 1st under 3.5%, November 3.5%. And if then it gets approved, then we can then go up from there. So there's some unknown there for 2 of the months. Voters have historically been cautious on tax increases. So as we see elections in prior years for bonds, those tend to be voted down across the region, including Amarillo. So that's one thing you must bear in mind. If you were to pursue a VADR, you have to understand your citizens and whether you think they would do this and for what purpose. What would they be willing to go to the ballot and say yes to? And with all this, VADRs require a significant amount of planning and careful execution. As I said before, logistically, we have to prepare 2 budgets. If we do public safety, we have to then coordinate a lot of departments. We have to get a lot of council input. I need to then know from you, I'm not saying today, but if we were to pursue this, I would need to know from you all what's your parameters. Like say, staff, don't go beyond 5 cents or don't go beyond or whatever it is. We'll need to talk about those things. There's a lot of coordination to be done. And again, I remind you all, I have a new CFO coming on board. And so there's some challenges we have with that. So with this is my final slide on the Vader. I'll be seeking some direction from the council today. Again, I'm not asking you today to tell me cents or those kind of things, but more or less, I am seeking some guidance on should we or should we not pursue a Vader? If the answer is no, then it's business as usual. We will then go through the budget cycle, we'll prepare one budget, and we will go from there within our current constraints and under revenue and law. If there's an interest in pursuing a Vader, I would then ask, do you agree with a public safety direction, or would you like to see a different direction? If you pursue the public safety direction, I would then turn this to my deputy city manager, Andrew Freeman, to work with his staff. He oversees the public safety departments to then coordinate what are we going to request of the citizens this upcoming November. And with this, if you were to approve this, if you were to do a Vader, if you were to say yes to a Vader, we would then get to work designing 2 parallel budgets, as I said before. We will then have to work our calendars around that to figure out how that works. We'll then have to probably have some touch points with council between now and July, kind of get some direction from council about particular Vader points. And then we'll have to have clear contingency plans as staff, as council, as budget on if it fails or if it does or if it succeeds. And so with that, I'm going to pause for a second here. I'd like to get your feedback on what you think about a Vader, answer your questions to the best of my ability as I can, and hopefully get some direction today on whether to pursue a Vader or not. So I'll be quiet here and take some notes.
Well, Grayson, I appreciate the effort that you did on giving us this information prior to this meeting so that we could review it.
Yep.
I think this is a great step forward for us as council and also as a city because it outlines the problems, the issues we're facing, but it also gives us a chance, I think, to take it one step further. When I read through this thing, what you ask staff to do, you're getting close to doing zero-based budgeting because they had to go back and they had to look at their budgets and they had to see where they could either increase fees, make cuts, and do that type of thing. So I think that exercise was very important. Mm-hmm. One thing I've found out as I've traveled around this city and talked to different groups, it's not that people in Amarillo are opposed to a tax increase. Mm-hmm. Nobody likes a tax increase at all. None of us. They want a say in what that is. Mm-hmm. So when we do fees on a utility bill, or we just make it an increase in taxes, even though they know by law we can do the 3.5%, mm-hmm. they feel that they've been sidestepped as the people who pay the bills. And I think as we talk about this, personally, I like the idea. We're giving them enough time on the front end. Here we are in March, in something that we're going to walk through. I think that gives us enough time to prepare the public for what it is we're looking at. Hopefully, as we talk about the public safety end of this, that we're not just talking about salary increases and benefits, that it's all-encompassing for the things that we truly need as a city.
Yes.
Whether it's the animal welfare and management, as well as our communications department, that they are getting things that they actually need as opposed to just salary increases.
Yes.
So I think that's an important thing.
Agreed.
I think we're headed in the right step. I think the public has to have the say in whether or not they're willing to pay those extra taxes for the services that they want from our city.
Yep. And legislation obviously agrees with you. That's why the Vader option has been made available, but it requires voter approval, so they would agree with you, yes.
Hey, Grayson, and maybe coming up we'll discuss this, but do we have, or is it even doable to find the cost per household When we look at the budget that it requires to run our city,
Yep.
from top to bottom, streets, everything, do we have an average cost per household?
We can develop that. I'm sure we can, so.
Okay, so we could see, what, based on previous numbers, I know we have housing starts and we have that kind of thing, so we will show a little bit of growth, but with growth, there's additional services required, from everything. So each additional home, that's great that we provide additional revenue, but I would love to see the amount per household that it takes to run the city. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
And I think that, based on what you were telling us just now, with inflation, with the increase of cost, whether it's asphalt or whatever it is, we all know, anybody that owns a business knows that we're paying our employees way more than what we used to. We have to just maintain a good workforce. If we don't, your business isn't going to survive. So not only wages and, benefits, everything is going up, but, I think that number would be really useful to see, where are we? If we don't use COs, if we don't use debt, if we don't use these things, what is the cost per household that we need just to maintain what we have? To your point, parks, whatever it is, everything. I think if we can figure out that number, I think that would be a good number.
Yep, we can work on that for sure, yes.
To look at. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
I appreciate the overview of this. A couple of things for me before we can get to the Vader. There's a couple of questions that I would want to have answered. One is, I think we need to look at all the options that are on the table, including this. I don't think it would be good leadership if we're not looking at all the options that are available to us. So first of all, I think this and whatever other options are available. I think as a council, I would hope we would consider these and not just say, absolutely not, we can't do it. Looking at all the options that are available, either for now or for in the future.
Yep.
Because I agree with you that these, we could solve this problem if the state would just let us keep all of our sales tax instead of sending 75% of our sales tax to Austin. That would solve our problem immediately, but they won't do that. They're taking our money down to Austin and using it. I don't know whether we get our money's worth out of that, but the state takes 75% of our sales tax. But a couple of things and you're going to go over one of these today, but what I've got to have a good understanding of, a couple of things that you could answer, and then one thing that we've got to answer as a council. One is, what is our cost recovery? How much could we mitigate a Vader based on cost recovery?
Yep.
And you're going to go over this today. The other thing that I think we've got to be able to answer, and it's now and it's in the future, what can we look at savings? Okay, we're looking at raising fees to pay for certain things, but what other areas of savings do we have that again mitigates the amount of a Vader that we would need? So to me, it would be, what are the savings? Because the amount of the Vader needs to be coming in after cost recovery and savings. I think we're going to hear about cost recovery today, but what are we looking at to be able to mitigate that on the savings side? What are we being able to do? I hope in the budget this year we're going to look at overtime and being able to take a look at that, because I think overtime, and again, I've got a better understanding of how we have to pay overtime in certain budgets when we're having to cover 24/7, 365. But overtime is somewhat of a controllable expense, so that would be part of it. I think what we have to answer as a council is, what are we willing to let go? What are, to me, core services are things that we can't let go. Cities can't run without streets or sewer lines or public safety. But I think we're going to have to begin to answer the questions, what are things that, that we can't let go of, or do we want to let go of, to be able to continue to do this, or because I think it's going to be a continued question that we're going to have to face the challenges of, is there anything that we want to let go of, or we can let go of, or do we want to continue doing all the things? And so I think there's two buckets. I think there's those things that as a city we have to be able to provide. Nobody else will provide them, and you can't have a city without it. And then what are other things, and where do those things lie?
Can I ask you, I mean, I love the open discussion. Can I ask, like, what would those things be? Because I look at the city, I'm thinking, okay, so what can we do with that? What category of things would be in there?
Great question, Don. I'll ask you. If you were looking at things that we have to have as a city that no one else provides, what would those be?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I look at our budget, I don't see anything in there that's just fat. That we're like, well, this is great that we have. I mean, that nobody else provides. I don't really see anything. So I'd be curious. I'm not coming at you. I mean, I'm truly curious of, with our core functions, the bare necessities for sure, but what is in there? I mean, I don't know if this is just an open discussion.
I think it's a great question for all of us to answer that, is to be able to say, what is there anything? Things? Because I think it's, and to me, the questions you got to ask are, what are things that we have to absolutely have as a municipality that we can't function without them? Can't function. Streets, improving streets, we can't function without that. Public safety, we can't function, without that. Those types of things. And what are some things that that others are providing? Because I think the question is, what do we absolutely have, and what is it that nobody else is going to provide unless we do? Those are the two questions. And maybe we look at the budget and we say, no, everything in there is just like that. But I think it's questions that municipalities are having to ask themselves, not only here across the state, but across the country.
I think when we look at what are the criticalities of the city, it's important. What did we need 75 years ago? What did we need 80 years ago? I mean, it's clean water, it's fire, it's police force. I mean, what are the basics of Maslow's hierarchy that we need as a society and as the human condition to live? And then what is above that? That is, I mean, it goes back to just the basic fundamental tasks that we need. So there is fat. There are things that are not critical to the human condition for the city to operate. And that's how you have to take a hard look at it.
Okay. What are those?
What are those? To me, what could we
I mean, we keep
of?
saying it, but what's there that we're saying is fat? I mean, are parks fat? I mean, is Parks and Recs like we don't?
At the end of the day, what are the priorities for the Tips household to operate? Electricity, water, sewer, fire, police.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I mean, do we need tennis? Do we need golf? I mean, I'm not saying get rid of tennis. I'm not saying get rid of golf courses. I'm not saying any of that. But I'm saying it is very simply defined what are the criticalities that have to be provided for the citizens to live. And then you break it down by tiers to move forward from that point.
And then we decide, I guess that's the question, right? Grayson proposed is, what is in there that we're willing to give up? If there's not enough money to provide, I mean, back to what Les said, what is there that we can give up? I mean, would it be a terrible city? We don't have any quality of life?
Absolutely, it would be horrible.
Yeah, but what you're saying is technically, I guess it's what Les was saying, that's fat. I mean, we don't have to have those to live. I mean, no citizen has to have those things to live.
When you have to make the hard decisions.
Right.
And we get to celebrate the wins, but we have to make the hard decisions up here.
Like you're saying, in a household, if somebody loses their job, what things go by the wayside?
Yeah, you're not going to dinner. You're not doing a lot of different things as you have to tighten your budget. And so that is, I think that's what you're saying. What are the critical components? I just want to say, Grayson, thank you for bringing this discussion to council early, identifying this. You've defined our responsibility to define the priorities and where we're going to go. I think it's critical, whichever direction this Vader goes, that it is communicated very clearly to the citizens. The citizens have the right to interact. Mm-hmm. And it's critical that your staff and all of the departments are aligned with this initiative to find these dollars. I mean, what are we going to do as a city? How long has it been since we've actually approved monies as a community, for initiatives? Now, I'm not saying, I know people out there are going to say, oh, David's saying that we're only going to do water and sewer and police and, you know, those things. I'm not saying that at all. But I think that we dive in and we really take a look at it. And I appreciate the forward thinking. It's easy to look in the rearview mirror and see where we've been. But this is a move forward that we're all aligned. And as we communicate this and the costs of what it takes to run a city and how we're being hampered by Austin, it's a great discussion, and I thank you for putting this out.
Absolutely.
I think we are also making a mistake here because government's never the answer, right? We're five guys sitting up here, and we're trying to make decisions for the whole city. And one, that puts a lot of pressure on us because none of us are perfect in making the right decisions all the time. So when we're looking at what we need as a city, I call it needs plus, right? Needs versus wants. There are things I would love to have in the city, and I know I couldn't get anybody to agree to vote for them. So those go off the table. We have to look at our basic structure of things too, on how we operate. You know, we're trying to come up with answers. Innovation never came from government. Except I can only think of two things, maybe the railroad and space, what we've done there. Government came up, but they didn't have the answers. They fueled it and asked for innovation. And I don't think we rely on the people that we have in our community. We have experts in all these things, whether it's road construction, water maintenance, wastewater, all of those things. We have people here in town that we can rely on. I go back to looking at the committees. Why we do all those appointments in one place. That's an integral part to what we do as a city and how we make decisions up here in the dais. Do we have the right people on those committees that are looking at the things that we need in our city? Because you get the right business people on there that have that right attitude that this is what we want to do and this is where we want to move our city. That makes it easier for our job. So I really think that we have to step back a little bit and instead of trying to find all the answers ourselves, rely on what experts we have out there. And we have some time, right? As we look at the Vader, it's going to deal with public safety. I think you listed about six areas that are there. Are all of those areas necessary for the city? Is there something we can do without? Is there something we need to add to that? I don't have the answer for that, right? So I really think that getting our citizens more involved in this process than just the five of us trying to make decisions, what we think is important. I think we all agree, and I think the people out here in the audience and also those watching would agree on what the basics are that we need as a city. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. As far as water and wastewater, our infrastructure, public safety, I think we all agree on those things. It's the other things, it's the plus that I think that we have to start looking at. And if it means we need to cut things, and do people tell us in sincerity we can live without this, then we have to take a serious look at it.
Are you going to ask him what the pluses are, Councilmember Tips? You've asked this side of the dais, so.
Yeah, no, it's the right side. We're good.
I would say, well, going back to it, I just think the cost recovery, I'm looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that I think, it's like, before we go ask for more money, what are we currently doing? So the cost recovery I like, but what about on the savings side and being able to look at that? That would be something that I think would be beneficial for us to know. What have we really looked at? Because it's and I think it's a question we're going to have to continue to have to answer. I mean, even if we have a Vader this 1 year, if we don't have it in the future, we're going to have to figure out where are the savings in the future. I mean,
and that is my question for council. Yes.
Yes, and so, but I would also say challenging everyone. Where can we figure out? Because when you're forced, when you don't have the money to spend, whether it's a household or a business, you have to figure it out. And what I'm saying is, what are things, and sometimes you figure out, wow, when I have no other choice but doing it, I figure out how to do things that maybe otherwise that I, would not have, figured out that, wow, I really could do that. So I just think that's the other thing is, the cost recovery I think is good to say, look, we've looked at, the Vader could be lower because we've looked at cost recovery and being able to, to do that. But again, what is on the savings side that we could say, here's some things that we figured out how to do more efficiently. Here are things that we figured out how to be able to have a savings on that. To be able to be effective. So that would be, and I agree. I think it goes both ways. I think we need to provide them some direction, but I think the challenge would be to all of us, how do we get there?
Yeah, and staff, we make those decisions daily because also we're trying to stay within a budget. And so again, as I said before, trying to maintain police overtime within our budget requires all departments to look on how do we save. And talking to HR, we do freeze positions from time to time in order to try to get ourselves within budget. I have those conversations with staff about as they look forward. Hey, Grayson, I lost a position, but I'm seeing them high over here. I'm gonna have to freeze this for a while. So we do those kind of things. Processing fees you have on your budget later today from municipal court. Internal audit has done things in order to free up money. Golf is an excellent example. We'll talk about that later today. Golf has done an outstanding job the last several years of becoming more and more efficient in what they do to try to cost recover. And then SB2 has naturally forced us as staff to constrain ourselves year after year after year. So it is working like that. One thing I'll say is that if you like to, if we were to pause this, then we could come back to the end after cost recovery. Because cost recovery, if you, depending on what things you nod your head towards that you accept, there could be some significant revenue generated through those fees. Then you can then decide at the end of this conversation, you know what? Let's try that this year. Let's do the cost. Let's get our fees. Let's get our other non-property tax revenues lined up. See what that does this summer, and then decide for the next year if that's still not enough. And so again, I'm not telling you have to do a Vader this year. The council wanted to talk about it, so we want to talk about it. But cost recovery, again, given the numbers I have seen and some numbers I put in the report, again, we need to vet those through and clean and scrub them really good. But there could be some significant money there, even $1 million or $2 million easily, that could happen. So you could see how that shakes out this summer, and then decide that wasn't enough either. We've fixed our fees. Sales tax is what it is. We've maxed out our M&O for 3.5. You can then decide come August, September, that still wasn't enough. Next council, next year, we should look at a Vader. So you could revisit this at the end of this day today and decide yes or no after you look at cost recovery things, is what I'm trying to say.
So if I could, I'll jump in here. So conversation today is established, that's a good word, on an assumption that we know what we know, right? We know our actuals, we know our expenditures, we know our revenues. I do watch the revenues pretty closely. I love the fact that we're trending high on sales tax. Sales tax continues to come in ahead of budget. I haven't been presented with the actuals. So my favorite 5 words, how do we know that, right? So like you started the conversation with $2 million shortfall with potentials in the police department based on overtime. So we have scheduled budgeted positions that are unfilled. So we have those expenditure budgets that we're not expensing. They're offsetting the overtime by how much? We have now a really good practice of keeping departments in line with departments. I don't like thinking that, Department X is working really hard to come in under budget just so whatever their fund balance is taken and given to Department Y that didn't necessarily care to manage overtime or whatnot, right? Now, police is the one of two where I think we get to say that's not necessarily a science that can be practiced. I mean, it costs what it costs to run a police department, right? So many different factors. One gentleman makes a mistake over there, one lady makes a mistake over there, you're talking tens of millions of dollars potential liability, to the city. So all that being said, do we do, and if not, should we, council, look at a mid-year budget review and get an actuals? And then why are we as a council asked to look forward 6 months, 12 months, 18 months without being given actuals within the recent 30 days? So like if we ask you today, are you over budget? I think the answer is no.
Correct.
Okay, so nobody's coming in here today saying we're way over budget, right?
Yeah, because we're only halfway through the year, so I won't know until September.
Okay, but are we trending on budget? Are we trending under budget? Or are we trending over budget?
There are line items that are trending over, line items that are trending under.
Okay, and do we know what those are?
We can get that information for the council. I don't have them.
Okay.
I don't have them today.
I think that's what I would like. So I would like to see if council would like to initiate a policy or a procedure that allows for not only this council but future councils to have something, not a zero-based budget, but a step towards that in getting actuals. Because I think even in previous years' budget discussions in July, we're being told we don't know yet. We'll have to wait until September gets here. Well, right now, if I look at my actuals for 24, 25, not even current fiscal year, I'm still waiting on an audit to show me where the actuals landed. I'll point to CIP, a good example of mid-year look. Do we have amendments we need to make? Did we budget a CIP project for $5 million that we didn't get a right-of-way? We didn't get easements. We know that it's not going to happen. Bringing that back early, being able to do a budget amendment, reappropriate that money by the appropriations committee up here so that you guys can push that out and get to those next projects. So efficiencies matter in that. We could take care of quite a few things if we did a mid-year budget with a mid-year budget amendment. What I would ask for, though, is hard and fast actuals. Mm-hmm. And so does our departments, I believe they do. I mean, I think our department heads do a really good job of managing their own budget. Where I think we're losing that is when we're trying to bring it all together. And maybe we just limit it for the first step. And, all you're talking about here as far as a later is general fund, right? Mm-hmm. So all we're looking at is just general fund departments.
Correct. Property tax departments, yes. Yeah, we'd be happy to bring you guys at the next meeting or so our actuals as of date, and so we could bring that to you if you like.
Okay, I think that would be great because I think those actuals are really where I'm hoping our new CFO is going to be pretty strong in tracking those and having those. And then, are we through with all of the software issues that we constantly have had to point to say, well, we don't know because we're transitioning, we're migrating data, well, we're having to hand enter these numbers. Like there's so many things I can imagine if I'm trying to run a department, and I'm responsible for the care of 300 men and women that are providing public safety, running into a burning building, and like I'm trying to get them equipment and I'm trying to do all these things, and what I'm asking for are actuals from upstream, and I can't get them because, well, we're having to go back and we're having to compute, and we can only give you a 1 year look back. So what's the status on that issue?
It is incomplete. That's one of the things, like I said in my earlier slide, one of my immediate goals for the new CFO is to define a closeout plan for the workday transition. So that's one of the things I have for Lola on her plate to work on over the next time period is to work towards what do we need to do to close out that project, and what's the timeline for that?
Super thankful that you have hired very well. I think one of the things that we will see looking back, and it may take 5 years to see some of the benefits and the strength that you've done in your job of putting good people in good places. And so I think you've hired very well. I'm excited about her. I hope she runs, 84 miles an hour barefoot, because she's got a long way to go quickly. So I think she can do it. But all of this stuff that we're talking about, we can't put council on the fast track here and then throw all the cargo on the train, at the last depot. And so we've got to get council these factual information so that we can adequately, accurately help to steer the ship. So one other thing that we will need, we not only have the ability to look at growth in our building safety department, we have new projects that are scheduled, under construction, that are coming on the tax rolls. We have existing projects that just got on the tax rolls. So we don't necessarily, when we come in and we talk about, we got to raise, our revenues. We need to go out there, we need to increase property taxes. We don't necessarily do the same effort of work in saying, okay, here's the tens of millions of dollars worth of valued property that's coming on. Here's the additional increases that we'll have. What we've done historically, we've kind of waited until we run our budget, we get through the budget, and then we report back like a year later, hey, those revenues came in a little higher than what we thought. So what we have seen is an under projection of sales tax, conservative, and then a lack of consideration for growth. Not only sales tax growth, but user growth, additional water users, all of the components that function in the system. So can we do a better job of maybe tracking that, projecting to that, so that when we do go to the voter with this very important question, if we do, we have the most up-to-date comprehensive data?
Yeah, Pratt is responsible for calculating those figures, and so we do make estimates based on what our best judgment, and so we try to work with them, but unfortunately that all Texas cities are up against, appraisal districts do not give their data until August. Mm-hmm. So we when you are first given the budget, we give you all our best guess based off the very thing that you said, based off what we see as growth, based off, it's always looking at today backwards. Valuations are not forward; they look at today backwards, and mm-hmm. so we can give you guys a reasonable idea, but we will not have numbers until practice. But we can definitely give you guys. Again, part of the goal today is to help identify what do you all need to know to decide if you want to pursue a VADR or not. So yes, we can get you guys actuals for year to date, and we can also give you guys kind of a, possibly from planning department, an idea as to what we know is in the cooker right now for property tax growth. If you guys feel that would help you in making your decision.
I think so, and I think what I'm describing here would just be maybe named or labeled like a growth rate, and so we should be tracking what our growth rate is through our building safety department and be able to see what those projects are that are in the pipeline, because you are looking forward as much as we've asked you to. I love the fact that you're considering not only 26, 27, but 27, 28. Mm-hmm. And so you've got projects that are in the pipeline over there that are expensive projects that are coming online. We've got a huge growth component to the city of Amarillo. And we have entities out there that some we pay, like Pratt, we pay them to do that job, but others that are in the community that can help. So let me speak to
real quick, if I could, Andrew, do you have any clarifying questions on that you need to ask her?
Well, I was just going to mention Pratt. It's like a January 1 snapshot. So anything going underway right now, we can't factor in until next year, and it'll be halfway under construction, halfway valued. So you're really talking probably 2 years out if you're looking at building safety permits. So
I think we look at building safety so we can project to that 27, 28. Thank you. One thing that I would, yes, sir.
If we've agreed that we think actuals would be a good thing to have, can we be in agreement? Is that?
I would agree, but not only actuals, and this is going to go back to our budget, but forecasts. So actuals are good up and really, I don't know. I mean, but maybe 6 months in, the actuals will really mean something. But to me, the other part is not only the actuals, but then forecasting out for the rest of the year and update, saying, here, because I think that's going to be important across the board, but especially on the budget.
With known expenses, because I know there's some departments that we know are very expense heavy towards the back end. So I'd say any actuals that we have, sometimes it doesn't give a perfect picture of actuals versus budget. We think, man, they're on trend. They're way ahead. But when we know that there's some known expenses coming at the end of the year, which we know there's a few departments that are very heavy, I would say in that, if we do this, that we need to factor in the known expenses that we know are coming up, because I think a snapshot sometimes is very misleading.
Sure. And again, as I will caveat when it comes to forecast, the forecast is not the new budget for this year. So I have to always caution council that I've had previous councils in the past, whenever I give them a forecasted number for, let's say, line item X, we forecast to be $90,000 at the end of the year, but I spend $100,000, the budget was $105,000. Council can sometimes be concerned, well, you said 90. It said, council, my budget was 105. We thought 90, but it came at 100. We still came within budget. So remember, forecasts are not the new budget.
We understand that, and I think it's a good faith on both our ends. I mean, you trust us to manage that information as well. Councilman, did you have anything else before I move on?
Real quick.
Yes, sir.
Why historically have we not had actual, or the actuals?
The actuals. I think that we currently, let me just point to like current state. Current state, when I ask, hey, how much do we have here? How much do we have there? Mayor, we are working through an audit right now. We got all hands on deck. We are jumping through ourselves to get the auditor all the information that he needs. Okay, so we're going to wait until after the audit, right? And then we'll get into kind of budget season. And then, you know, the issue has been antiquated systems, fat fingers and manual entries, lack of communication. So these are all the things that you're addressing. These are all the things that you're putting, you know, separating and putting in components. And so I'm just asking, are we there yet? Like I think we hope to be.
I would like to know why actuals are not a new phenomena, and if it is a software issue, why have we not done this in previous decades?
We provide actuals during the budget process. We do.
Right.
We've just not, since I've been here, I know we've not had council ask for actuals earlier in the budget process. And so, yeah, we can give you all a monthly snapshot if you want. If the council would like to have it, we can give you a monthly snapshot month to month or quarterly or so forth, saying, hey, this is where every budget's at. We can do that for you all.
Well,
I just have not been had that asked of me.
Well, and I'm not pointing fingers at current staff or anyone. I'm just curious as a city why we've not ever. I mean, this isn't a new accounting phenomena. I mean, we've been here for a long time. As a city, this group comes and goes. And I'm just curious historically why the city has not done that from previous councils. I guess the answer is that previous councils have not asked for that.
I couldn't answer that question.
Well, I think historically with the budget process, we'd usually get January, February actuals, and then we have to start our budget. So we have those actuals, and then we estimate or forecast through the rest of the year.
Right.
But we can, of course, get actuals as we go. But to build the budget, you got to start somewhere. So staff usually started with actuals through a set amount and then projected forward.
Let me point to one thing, though, Councilman, that'll help you. We updated our financial policy, and we updated it very well. So previous financial policy allowed for entities or departments within the general fund to pass costs and share costs back and forth. And so the tendency for staff was to look at the total fund and say, well, we're within budget and we'll just move this from this department over to there to cover. Now we've restricted that, so it's department by department, so you're getting a much closer look where those departments actually can run their actuals. I think two things. One, financial policy, the other thing, fund balance. So you got to keep in mind, if you're running a department and you start reporting those actuals, your fund balance becomes more appealing to council to go and pull money out of, because it looks like, well, there's going to be a balance there. We're going to need that. Let's use that money. And so I'd say historically the tendency, just human nature, not any one person, but is to reserve those. What if I need it? You're responsible to run that department, so you wait until you get to the end of the year and then report. And quite honestly, like if council doesn't ask, we don't tell them. And so it takes a minute to get on council and learn it, figure it all out. So I think that putting in a mid-year look, council, would be very, very helpful. So I'm not saying do it monthly. We don't want to put another burden of paperwork on the efficiencies we've already gained. But a mid-year look would be twice what we're currently doing. We're only looking at it one year, and even then we're having to look back with estimations. We did not have actuals in our last budget workshop. So,
You had actuals for prior years.
Well, no, the current year that we were in, we didn't have an actual.
Yeah, so I think we had as of a certain date, like probably, was it April 1st? maybe March 1st. We had at that point there, because we provide you reconciled, because again, as Andrew said, budgets, when we prepare a budget, you have to eventually put a bookmark in the process, and then you have to start the budget calculations. Otherwise, you never get it done. So every city does this. You decide, okay, we're going to get actuals through March 1st, April 1st. Now we're going to start a budget process to figure it out. Now, if we can update it along the way, we can. But we have to get the budget started at some point.
And I think our goal with Workday and our budget software is that those data sets are supposed to sync up so we can more quickly update the actuals. In the past, we didn't have that capability.
Yeah, so for the sake of time, Council, what we can do is, yes, we can bring you guys back actuals as reconciled actuals that we have to date, and so we can bring that back to you all. We can also bring you back to some growth projections and for what we see happening. We can also come back to at the end of the day, decide if you guys want to then look at it again or not, or we can push it back to a future date. And so, but if you'd like, we can continue on to other topics today, because we do have a significant amount of cost recovery things to cover as well.
Sure. So before we do that, let me make my next 2 points here. So on the ballot proposal, I love business, because business can be very, take it or give it. So if you give an offer, you may also be expected to take it. So if you're in a partnership with somebody and, this is what I say the company's worth, well, then my business partner can also make me take that offer. And so I think with, staff saying you're giving us, the position of take this to the voter. We're all saying the voter's voice matters the most. Mm-hmm. I think it's wonderful that the voters, even though, there's minimal trust in our society right now, the voters trust us to work within the existing budget, and we help to manage that budget. We don't go over that budget, right? And so when we want to go over that budget, we have the option to go to the voter and ask them, do you want me to go over your budget? Well, the way we represent that, and we have in the past, in one way that really bothered me when I was a councilman first elected, was we asked the police and fire to carry the water, and so we kind of put them on the chopping block, but we didn't as an entity put anything else on the chopping block. So we're being asked to come up very directly. What are you going to cut? What do you want to lose? These are the hard decisions. We got to make the hard decisions. What does it look like if you put a ballot proposal with certain programs that you ask your voter? Do you want to lose this program? So, I'll pick on one just because I really like him and he does a great job. But, pools, inspection of pools. So, we're going to talk about a budget of here's how much it costs to inspect all these pools. Here's how much more we need to charge to go and inspect these pools. Have we ever had a loss of life due to, a chlorine issue in a pool? I don't know. But that would be something you could ask your voter. Do we want to spend your money in pool inspections? Or is that something that's being required by the state? Maybe there's a minimum, standard that we have to, but then you look at a lot of the departments that are grant funded and all of the education that goes through that. Like if we start showing programs that we're paying for out of the general fund, and then we show programs that pay for themselves, this pie gets way smaller and way easier for your public to digest, because they think we pay for everything out of their taxes. They don't realize that community development is 100% funded by grant funds. So I would ask, as we walk through this conversation, if we are going to put something on the ballot, here's your 5%, your 5 cents that we're asking for our local heroes to do their job. Here are the 5 programs that we're asking you to tell us if you want to remove. Because it is our budget. And I think that leadership, if you say you're willing to make the hard decisions, that's a hard one. Are you willing to actually go and ask them? So if we did that, would we restrict council's use of COs? So if we're going to go to the voter, we're going to say, look, we need 5% because we've done a good job of making sure we mapped out all the year. Are we going to turn around 6 months later and then have council look at an option of, well, we also need to borrow $12 million here for that. We also need to borrow $10 million for that. Because then what we've done is we've misrepresented to our voter what our actually need was. And so would we as a council and perhaps a policy restrict those COs to like strictly emergency use, where the police department has to burn down before you would go and borrow that money? And are we then going to hold ourselves accountable through those 12 months of, hey, we got all we got. We got to make it work, you know? So I know emergencies and the what ifs can come in there, but as a stipulation of self-accountability, council, this is your question. You've forecasted, you've spoken to your voters, hey, here's how we're going to get to streets. We're going to try to borrow $12 million every year in order to go and get those additional streets on top of our street fund so they have consistency, so they know that they can plan 2 years out. We've been willing to take that hit. Some of our voters don't like that. But it is us managing within what they've given us. We only have so much money, and this is something that we can do. Now, unpopular or not, it's benefit the city greatly in how we're planning. So if we want to remove that and go to the voter and ask them, let's represent that adequately. So I just want there to be a risk. I want there to be a caution or a cost to going to the voters. I want us to understand as a body, if they say no, they meant no. We don't have that street repair, right? And so that's the risk that we're faced with. I want to make sure you guys feel that same risk. So if you want to continue on with your program, thank you.
Absolutely. So at this point here, what I have so far is we will bring back to y'all actuals, and at a future council meeting, we'll bring back to you some growth projections. And so for that, we can do that. So, all right, council, I'd recommend, it is almost 10:30. We're halfway through our session here. I recommend we take a short break so we can freshen up and get ready to come back. So, yes.
Those heading back to our seats, please. We'll start in 1 minute. Okay. Are you good to go ahead? We'll kick it back off? All right,
Yep.
back in session. Thank you.
All right, where's my slide? Get back to the right slide here. Yes, okay. All right, next topic I have for the council is to discuss this summer. And so we've already kind of discussed a few of these things here. I think we have a few general ideas from the council about a few things we can bring back to you. But one of my goals for today is to kind of get some guidance on what would council like to see presented this summer. So how would you like the budget to be presented to you? Whether it's how many days do I budget for the initial workshop? 3 days, 5 days? Because even that plays, and that helps staff know, okay, I've got 1 day to get this done, or I got 5 days to get this done. So that's those kind of things. What kind of reports, forms, data, those kind of things we can be working on. What kind of columns? What kind of percentages? Forecasting values, those kind of things. So anything you don't want talked about, anything, Grayson, don't even think about bringing that to us. Or Grayson, we'd like to kind of see a direction toward this. So this is just one slide here. So my request today is to kind of get some guidance from the council as to flow, as to order of the presentation this summer. These are things that I'm going to hand off to Lola when she gets here, but it will help Lola and her team help build the presentation for this summer to kind of know from you all what would you like to have in front of you, in what order, and so forth. So with that, I will again stop and kind of get some feedback from you all. And again, you don't have to necessarily all agree on something, and but just kind of getting input from everyone to kind of know what you'd like to see.
Well, I mean, I think we had a good discussion of this last year. So do we have all the notes from last year?
We have lots of notes.
Well, I think last year we really lined that out for what we wanted to see. I think actuals was the biggest thing. And I know come budget time, there's some numbers we don't know, right? That, like you just said, we're forecasting, but we want the most current numbers.
Yep.
And then I think one thing we want is the variance from last year.
Yes.
Actual budget where they were to where they are this year. Trying to think, what other columns did we request? CIP, as far as the projects on completion. Is that what you're talking about? Budgeted versus completion?
So one thing that's been very difficult to track, and I think you've done a good job of heading up a committee with staff, which is going backwards and cleaning up the CIP projects by bringing them forward, closing them out. But then where we really ended up is that exercise is bringing us to a place to where council is waiting on we'll call it a CIP update, so we can accumulate all of those projects that were completed, what was the budget amount or appropriated amount versus what was the actual, and then that money that's left there, if there's a potential, or like if we had a project that didn't make, the reappropriation of that. And so hopefully we could do that twice a year, mid-year as well as budget, but CIP actuals be very important. On top of that, what I would say is that quarterly investment earnings or holdings report that says, here's where all the money sits. Here's all your cash, here's all your CDs, your treasuries, your notes, everything like that, because we want to be able to see that interest growth. And so being able to track that interest earnings every year and not kind of let that get washed away in the overall budget would be very helpful, because $1 million worth of interest earnings is very, easily potential, and the way in which we're reporting that, those would be the two that I'm keying in on top of what Don would say would be to go back and look at the rest of the notes. I remember trending was a big deal, being able to see what the trends look like. That way we can see, well, why did we jump 20% in 1 year? What happened in that department, right? So, Councilman, did you have anything on your end?
Yeah, a couple of things I just want to mention is one thing I would like to see at the very beginning is because I think, I don't think we can ever hear it enough just to remember how this orders, but also to remind the public of how our finances and budgets work, which is just going over again how M&O and INS work. That just primer doesn't have to be that long, but just to make sure that we know how the M&O and INS works. Also, just for the M&O, we have a 3.5% cap. I think it would be good to say, let's just say, for example, we didn't want to take 3.5%. We took $1 million less. We took 2.5% or 2% or whatever. What's that the compounding impact years from now? I mean, yeah, we want to keep an eye on, obviously keep an eye on taxes, but if we do not take that every year, what does that cost us longer term? And then just a reminder, because I think there's the first two years that I was on council, our tax rate went down. Last year, our tax rate went up. But the first two years, we were taking in more dollars, but the tax rate went down. I think just a reminder of how those things work.
Valuations, yes.
Yeah, and particularly, and again, there's no limit on the INS side, and the M&O side. And then just a quick look at all of our debt status. Mm-hmm. In other words, where are we on what debt have we issued that we're still paying on? When does that roll off? Again, that's something that I'd like to be able to take a look at. I do want to, and I think I emailed a copy of this to, and I'll pass a copy down for everybody to take a look at. But to the mayor's point, because we've talked about this a couple of times, I had something that I just wanted to share. It's something that would be a format, if we could get it worked into our budget. And this would be, what I find sometimes is while there's a 800 page budget, that's not for us to live on page 289 of looking at how many pencils are spent or the office supplies. What I would like to see is something that provides us a good general overview of the various budgets. And so this one here would just be, and these are not actual numbers, but just to show you what I think would be most beneficial. I know for me, I don't know for council, but this would just be a general fund summary. But I would like to see this for airport, for parks and recreation, for the other departments, which is, and it takes, and the top area is revenue. So this takes FY23, FY24, it has FY25 budget, and then to your point, this would be the forecast. So this would be, at whatever point, it may be 7 months of actual, 5 months of forecast. And then what you're looking at the budget. To me, the most important part of this is the last 3 columns, which is looking at a percentage difference back to that trend of being able to say, okay, property tax, we were up 4.92, up 7.53, 6.53. Does that cause us any concern? Wait a minute, let's go down to transit. We were down 11%. Now we've been up, and these are not actual numbers, by the way, but 15 or 14%. Why is that? To me, it just allows you at a snapshot to really be able to take a quick look at what are the trends on the spending in these areas, because I think it just allows you to very quickly be able to say, oh, here, to ask questions pretty quickly.
So quickly, just as a point of order, we've got a document here that's being shared online, and we've got a handout to make sure we record it correctly in the minutes and for everybody to hear. This is an example or a draft of the template that Councilman Simpson's presenting. These numbers are not referenced to existing actuals or projections.
Yes.
So these numbers are just examples.
I just tried to put some numbers in. I started to put in the actuals, but then I have a life, so it would have taken me about 10 years to do that. The other area, so revenue is an area. I would like to see expenses by department. So, just a line item that says, quickly I can say all the departments that are in, the general fund. And then expenses by category. So this would be, okay, all together, what are the personal services, overtime pay? This would be for everything that falls under the general fund. And then the last 2 are employee costs. Again, I think if we look at the municipality, I'm sure our largest expense is probably employee costs.
Correct.
I'd just like to kind of line this out to be able to better track this as an organization, depending on which one it is. And then the other thing that I think would be beneficial is just where are we on full-time equivalents? Mm-hmm. So FTEs, which is basically, some of them may be part-time, some of them may be full-time, but ultimately you're adding them up, dividing them by 40 to determine the FTE so that we can see the trends on that. So don't know if the system will allow us to do that by the time we get on this year's budget, but boy, this would be, I think it would be really beneficial.
What we would need to do, if council were to kind of agree in spirit to this kind of format, what I would want to do is we have a third party that designs our reporting out of our software. That way, because the software, it's a bunch of data. You have to design reports that I want this report that has these columns from these locations, and then it prints out that way. So we would need to engage with our third party right away in order to have them start preparing some kind of reporting mechanism to do this. Otherwise, we have to look at Excel.
Yeah.
And my preference would be something that the software can produce that would pull from the software to do something like this.
I'd rather not have Excel. I'd rather have, to me, a number in Excel really doesn't mean anything. The number in the system is what matters, the budgeting system. So if we could look at that.
Yeah, and again, I'd have to give a staff. I believe this is possible. So again, with our third party. Let me confirm with them. But I can head that direction if council were to agree in spirit to these kind of columns, this kind of category type approach.
Is this, Rich? Is this doable with these columns
Yeah, it should be doable. As
within the system, within our software?
Yeah, once they get to the point that they're seeing actuals and that reporting is done, this is just another form of report. So it would be something we'd partner with, our Workday consultant to do.
So, Rich, can this tie back to the account balances? So, like, the one thing that I'm hearing Councilman Simpson bring back up again is that in previous years, the budget was never tied to the actual account balance, meaning it was a product that had to be produced manually. It wasn't exported into that. So if we create this system right here on a template, can we export directly from our account balances into these to reflect the totals?
I'd look to Katrina to, just from a process standpoint, what they have already to answer that, because I'm going to tell you, yes, anything is possible.
Okay.
I think one other thing that is absolutely crucial in this, and we talked about it before, but the actuals are the actuals. We'll have those. But to me, the most important column is the forecast, because to me, forecasting as accurately as possible makes it's going to be crucial to be able to have a forecast, because if you don't really have a forecast that's correct, the percentages really don't mean anything. So, just making sure, because I think we kind of have navigated for that over the last couple of years, but I think making sure that the forecast, I think, would be would be the most important part of that, and making sure that forecast is as accurate as possible. And it may start out at 7 plus 5. We may come back and look at the budget again. It's 8 plus 4. Kind of continuing to go through that. And then the other thing is, and I don't know how to maybe put this, but I felt like our most productive discussions on last year's budget was kind of towards the last day, when we kind of looked at the big items. I don't know if you remember that, but to me, the more that we can stay at a higher level and looking, so we were looking at, okay, here's the gap that we have to fill on the budget. Here were some of the big items. The more that we can kind of stay on those larger items, I think would be more beneficial. So if there's something that just says, and again, I don't know when we go into this budget, if we said, here are the 15 items that are having a significant impact on the budget because they're new items this year, there's something that we changed, and we had, we had positives and negatives. Obviously, if there's revenue that we went in and adjust, I think that would be beneficial as well. And then just for format, I would throw one other idea out, is would it be beneficial to look at our revenues first?
Absolutely.
In other words, before we even start expenses, the revenues are, your expenses are going to be determined by the amount of revenue. And if you don't have your revenue correctly, well, then you've got to go in and be able to do that. So maybe where we can to maybe start off by looking at, okay, are we okay with these revenue numbers? Do they pass the smell test? Are they too aggressive? Because that, again, is going to give you some indication of whether your expenses are, or whether we're going to have to get more out of expenses to be able to do that. So those are just some of the things I wanted to bring up.
Very good input. Very
So
good.
I really appreciate this. Want to make sure council has an opportunity. Looking at this, what we are doing is directing staff to implement this based on this template, and it's pretty, I'd say exhaustive. Like, I think you've caught all of the line items and done a pretty good job. So I'm not saying there's anything missing, but if you had something in addition to. So as an example, once again, to kind of go back to the CIP, what would be great is to see CIP line itemed in all appropriations of CIP, $250 million of projects that are sitting there. Closed CIP, right, on this summary, where we capitalize $50 million. CIP meaning construction in progress, not capital improvement project. But here's your CIP construction in progress, $200 million moving forward. You would be able to track that number a little bit better. Right now, we're having a harder time. You know, we issue the money and it sits for a couple years. It's cumulative. The other thing would be if we could define other revenue. That's one other area that we can get lost. So let's say we had a lawsuit settlement and proceeds that came in from there. Can we track those revenues there so that we can make sure we're adequately accounting for all the revenues? And so sometimes when it just says other, we don't know, did we sell a property? So, well, we sold that building, $1 million value.
Yep, absolutely. And remember, of course, the budget is very big. And so when you get the budget, any time that you have a question like that, like you see an unknown what's the information here, please ask and we will get you the information.
I think the other benefit of, having this, again, as early as we possibly can in this format, it just, it allows us to have a little bit of time to be able to look at it and be able to formulate those questions. Or it may be something that's just like, I can get an answer to pretty
Yes.
quickly. But
Yep.
I think the more that we, kind of stay at the higher level and then dig down if we need to, I think it's just going to allow us to be a lot more efficient in being able to make the best use of our time when we're
Yep.
reviewing the budget.
Absolutely. This is all very good input. I think this will really give Lola and her team some good guiding parameters to work with. And unless council has any other ideas, we can move on to cost recovery. We have 1 more hour left for lunch, and unless there's more input for the budget this summer. Very good. Thank you all. All right. Our last topic we have today for our final hour. Again, just for our timeline today. Again, we've roughly budgeted an hour for lunch for you all, for the council. Then we have executive session beginning at 1 o'clock, with, of course, regular at 3 o'clock. All right. My final set of slides, which is half the slides still, are cost recovery. As you recall, last year, City Council discussed, okay, Grayson, we've been talking about property tax, we've been talking about sales tax, we've been talking about utility revenue. How about our other revenues, the other things that help make up the budget? And so how are those doing? Are those keeping up? Are those appropriate? Or are taxpayers subsidizing services that they may not necessarily be using, and so other people are using? So again, the thought was the golf ball idea. So with this, I tasked staff over the last several months with going back to the budgets and looking at all their programs, all their expenses, everything they've got, and identifying things that what are services we're providing that have a revenue toward that. Again, example like permitting. You go in to get a permit, there's an expense for that. Does that permit cover the cost, or are taxpayers subsidizing that permit for that developer? Those kind of things. That's the kind of things we're looking at. And so with this, again, the whole point of all of this conversation now is to be looking at non-property tax revenues, things that right now the property tax and sales tax are having to make up ground for. So, again, a lot of the process here with this was we're not looking at we were looking at, again, cost recovery, not cost cutting. Again, that's our earlier conversation, which I think as the council saw, it's a very challenging topic to tackle. So, what it is that our citizens don't need and don't want. So. All right, the approach. As I received input from the staff, I began to see some patterns as we looked at what were we identifying. So we were seeing, again, examples of where fees that have been outpaced by cost as inflation occurs, as price of doing business has increased, our fees have not kept up. I mean, there are several examples of fees that have not been changed in 20 years. I guarantee you costs have changed in 20 years. And so there's examples of that. We're looking at aligning our practice with best practices. What are our peer cities doing? What's the industry doing? How does our fee compare to those standards? Looking at legal constraints. There are some fees that you cannot touch. For example, vital statistics of birth and death certificates, you cannot increase that fee. State sets that rate. So if you take a loss there, the state says tough. We don't care. Just be blunt like that. And so that's some things that we have had to deal with in some of our fees. We also have to consider public and political sensitivities. There's one thing, like example, we'll get to environmental health, the daycare fee. Legislative has said, you know what, we're going to help. We're going to encourage local governments, and I say encourage. State always forces you. They say, you will subsidize this area here. And so there are some things that politically and socially in our community that the citizens just, put it on my tax roll instead. I don't want to have a fee towards that. So we have to bear those things in mind. So with this, as staff we're looking at this, we brought you all concepts. We did not sit down and work out every logistical factor here. We don't want to do that until council says good idea, flesh it out, or bad idea. So with this, the next several slides here we're going to be having, you're going to be getting some concepts. Some staff did a little more homework, but overall, I tasked staff, don't figure out the exact recoup amount of money, because again, that's to come. Let's let's give me some concepts here. Let's do some pros and cons, do a little bit of analysis. Then once I get interest from the council, then we'll go to work doing those things. The scope here, general fund. So I did not look. I did ask every department to look at their budgets, but the focus today is general fund's property tax. That's my focus today. And so while every department did participate, for sake of time, I am not going to be covering airport, community development, public health, or WIC. Those ones, they have their own revenue streams. Like airport, they're already cost recovering. The other three, they have federal funds. While a couple of them do have some general fund assistance, there is recent council direction behind those that I didn't tackle today. So again, my focus today is general fund items, general fund departments, property tax departments, where property tax is making up the difference where fees are falling short. So getting into the departments, we're going alphabetical, animal management and welfare. As you look at their budget overall, full cost recovery is not feasible. I think it's around $4 million expense, around $100,000 to $200,000 revenue. I cannot bring to you a realistic option today to make up $4 million. And you're going to see that through a lot of the departments today. So I asked them, okay, look within your budget. What are certain things you're doing that have a revenue associated with it where the revenue is not keeping pace with the expense? So that they got specific granular like that. Again, while I may not be able to make up all the ground, what are some things that I can at least have small victories and make up ground in those areas? They gave us 4 options here, good options. One is our daily shelter care fee. Right now, it's costing us about $13 to shelter and care for an animal. We're charging $5, which means taxpayers are making the difference for the other 10. So with this, we've not raised our fees in over a decade, so one of the options we have here is to increase our shelter care fee from $5 to $15 per day in order to reflect actual costs that we're seeing in the shelter for caring these animals. Adult animal surrender fee. The recommendation here is to increase from $25 to $50. Again, very similar to the last one. Our costs are exceeding our ability in order to bring in these surrendered animals. So when a person drops off an animal, there should be a higher expense versus the taxpayers making the difference for that. Option 3, adoption fees. This is actually an interesting one. We currently have an ordinance that says $50 for canines and $30 for felines, but back in 2020, I'm guessing for COVID, I'm not sure if it was council or staff or whatever it was, board, we discretionarily lowered that I'm sure for sensitive reasons. our recommendation here is to put it back to ordinance values. I mean, again, this is not an increase to what's in the ordinance. This is actually going back to the ordinance value. And last on option 4, repeat impoundment policy. So we do have, unfortunately, some citizens who do not manage their animal as well as others do, and their animals get out repeatedly. And so part of the thought here is in order to try to incentivize or encourage them to take a little more responsibility with their pet, the fee doubles. And then you have to then spay and neuter your animal, because as you all know, a loose animal is possibly a procreating animal, so which adds to the issue there. So those are the 4 options here. I would recommend all 4 of these is what I'd recommend. Now, there's some departments that I will say that I recommend some, not all. This is one area that I'd recommend all 4. So we can either come back to this, or if I get nods, affirmative, we can do that. But otherwise, if there's a willingness with council, I would recommend all 4, and I can send staff on work on these for the budget. Any comments or thoughts for animal management and welfare?
I wouldn't. I don't think I'd have any problem with any of these, but there's a couple that I could see where I'd probably like to get a little bit of feedback from our Animal Welfare Management Board, just to kind of run this by them.
Yes, and allow me. I apologize, John. I should say, for all of these things, my goal would be that I would have. Every one of these things is going to involve certain levels of communication, input, board input, education for the public. So yeah, these are not like we're going to start tomorrow. These things I would ask staff to, between now and October 1st, to get the appropriate process per that fee started, whether it's a notice or whatever's required for that. Yes, we would be doing that.
Okay, yeah, because a couple of these I could, and again, I'm sure every one of these we could have exceptions. We're going to have to make some tough decisions on this, but on the Animal Welfare Management Board, people would probably wonder, well, are people less likely to surrender their pet, or surrender if there's a cost to it, or if we increase the cost? Adoption fees, would that mitigate adoption? Not saying that we shouldn't do these, and we're going to have, but I'd just like to kind of run that through and kind of see what the feedback is from there.
And that's the reality. For every fee you look at, you're going to have pushback. And so again, this was an exercise that council requested. I think the council knew that every fee you increase, you're going to have pushback. There's always a pro and a con to that. But I think the mentality was, look at it simply, what is not cash flowing right now, and let's look at those.
Grayson, I think this is absolutely where we need to be as a city. I mean, if it's $13 a day to take care of them, why are we only charging $5? There's a lot of people in the city that don't have dogs and cats. Why are we supplementing that, that fee? It needs to cover the cost. Fantastic job, and I would support all of these, but with a rollout with the committees and different folks. But if it is this cost, then we need to charge it.
Absolutely, yep.
Hey, Grayson, where did you come up with these fees? I mean, I'm just curious, like option 2, increase from 25 to 50.
So
why did we choose 50?
These are looking at peer practices as well. So I know when Victoria when Director Medley was here, she gave me kind of a table of other cities and so forth. I think this is one of them, but she looked at other cities, looked at their fees. And again, they did some, again, I didn't ask staff to actually sit down, figure out, well, Sally charges $13 an hour. So, but they gave the best overall guess. Because again, directors, they understand their budgets. And so these fees were based off of that in-house knowledge of what does it cost to me, what's the peer practice, and so forth. But again, if you want to do a different fee, again, the recommendation is this, but if council wants to say, $30 instead, again, we had to just give you something.
Sure, okay. And then the daily shelter care fee, I guess that was based on some type of cost.
Yeah, that was
correct?
An easier one for them to calculate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm good with these fees. I think as we look across the city, because you're going to go through each of these areas, at this point, those who are, whether it's golf, tennis, the swimming pools, whatever, those are the people that are using those facilities.
Correct.
I know I played golf, I played tennis. I never looked at the fee that I was paying because I wanted to go play. And it was still cheaper than going to join a private club. So the city still is offering that quality of life service. But I think these fees are in line. And I don't think they're just numbers that have been thrown together to appease us. But I think that the department heads have done a good job in really looking at what that should be.
Yep.
And I think that most taxpayers would agree that if you're the one that's using that service, you should be the one that's paying.
Yeah. Very good. So for what I could do today is what I would like to do is, as we work through these slides, as I think about this, if there's any option that anyone is like, Grayson, absolutely no, we'll get those. And then what I will then do is bring back the ones that we've recommended and that I could tell from council there's positive towards. I will bring them back as a resolution to you all. And so that you guys can then vote on those at a future meeting, and that way we have more time to think about this. Again, as part of the resolution, it'll be part of there's going to be a rollout process, a study process, and so but that way there's some action tied to this, and you have some more time to think about this as well. So with this, I will move on to the next one. I will plan to tentatively move all 4 options forward to that resolution.
And Grayson, I guess when that resolution comes out, I guess it's maybe a no-brainer, but I guess you will show us from previous numbers, the dollar amount of impact that would have to the budget. Right. We don't need to now, but when that resolution comes forward, just basing it on previous numbers.
What I would say logistically is I would like to bring the resolution to you like the next meeting or so. I won't have the numbers then, but then I would then, as part of the budget process,
that's fine.
We would then bring them back to you then, because again, you're not locked in at the resolution there. You can always in the budget say, you know what, Grayson, now that I've seen the number on the adult animal surrender fee, it's just not worth it. And so we're going to have too much pushback. It's just not worth it kind of thing. Scratch it from the budget kind of a thing. So I would prefer to, as one unified process, bring back to you the numbers during the budget process itself.
That's fine. I just think the numbers are important.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yep. All right. City Marshal. Again, full cost recovery is not feasible. So their focus was on the abatement fee, the abatement work they do. As you know, City Marshal, they go out there, they look at nuisances from tall grass to dangerous structures to those kind of things. There is an administrative fee to that. We do have, by law, we have to require to do certified mails. There's data entry. There's contractor coordination. There's contractor expenses. There's lien preparation. And on the occasion, we have to issue warrants. And so there are legitimate costs tied to doing abatement. Right now, the taxpayers are having to make that up for those who are having to be abated. And so with this, Jacob and his team, they looked at, we have not raised our fee since March of 2012. So the $75 administrative fee has not changed in over, 13 or so years, 14 years now. So with this, looking at peer cities, they range from $125 to $250 administrative fee. The recommendation here from staff is to go from $75 to $125 in fiscal year 26-27, and then to $150 in 27-28, a phased approach there. Again, you're not on the high end, but you're doing more to cover the cost so that those who are having to be abated are covering their costs and not those who are actually doing a good job of maintaining their property. So, and I would recommend that approach. And he also recommended an automatic 3% increase in our ordinance. We have a few other permits like building safety. As costs do go up, we went ahead and put in place an automatic adjustment. That way, we don't have to come back every year and council has to wait every year. We have a natural inflation built into the ordinance there. So my recommendation would be the phased approach, 75 to 125 in next year. To 150 the following year with a 3% automatic annual adjustment thereafter. Any concerns with that? Right? Now, Civic Center, this is a bit of an exception here. I put it in here because I know I've had some conversation with some council members about this topic. I know council would at some point like to discuss cost recovery here. Again, all departments did this exercise. This is not a general fund department. This is funded through their own revenues and through HOT and other funds like that. Staff do review fees and so forth, but council, my request, given it is 11:13 today, my request, I know this is a challenging, complicated topic to discuss. There's been a lot of political discussion, a lot of other discussion with this one here. If the council would wish to discuss cost recovery, I would recommend we not do that today, but we would set that aside as its own standalone topic. Environmental health. There are 2 slides here. So there are a number of options here that environmental health has come up with. This is actually a department where I feel that cost recovery as a department may be achievable in the near future. And so They currently have a $2.3 million budget. They are at $1.8 million revenue. It's a $500,000 subsidy from general fund. And so they've identified several items here that I recommend, some that I'm not going to recommend, but some that I will recommend. One change in your code, in your slides today, what that should actually say is actually grease trap program revenue realignment. Staff got with me yesterday and said, Grayson, there's actually a wastewater and utilities. This is actually grease trap program. And so Environmental Health administers this program for grease trap inspections, but all the revenue is going to utilities. So with this, thank you, Stephanie. With this, this is more of a budget realignment that I'm planning to do for the upcoming budget year. I will be moving that revenue from the utilities over into general fund. That's actually a very substantial revenue stream based off history there. So that's one that unless you say no, I plan to move from utilities into the general fund because that's the department who's doing it. Option 2, again, the council asked me to bring all options to you. Good and bad. And so I know we've talked about vector fee before. Again, this is an option the council can consider. It's not one that I'm recommending today. And so, but if you so wish, you could fund the vector fee through a fee on the utility bill. Again, based off council discussion before, I am not recommending this one today unless council says otherwise. Option 3, tattoo and body piercing inspection program. One of the NEHA core programs is to do inspection services for tattoo and body piercing. We have staff feels that they can take this on without additional staffing to do this program here. So there's revenue that could be had from this one here. I'm actually not recommending this one today. And so I appreciate staff willingness to pursue more revenue streams, but I'm always a little cautious about adding more work without adding additional staff. And so that's one that I would have some caution with. Next slide, 3 more options. Recreational water program for pools and spas. It is currently recovering 50% of its cost to do this program. So the recommendation here is to double the permit fee from $500 to $1,000 so that the taxpayers are not making up the difference for inspection services on pools and spa services. There is an option for phasing if council so wished. I would be recommending the full cost recovery route at this time. Option 5 is a group daycare program. It is only recovering 34% of its costs. This is one, like I said before, that legislation has stepped in to kind of put some caution towards us. I would not recommend full cost recovery in this program here based off legislative action that's been taking place in Austin. But I would maybe perhaps a modest fee increase, maybe 10 to 15%. Again, just trying to, in good faith, recoup some of the costs that it takes to provide the service. And lastly, this is one we've already taken action on with council. The public health district cost sharing. As you know, we do service Randall County, Potter County, City of Canyon, Lake Tanglewood, a few other areas there. But currently the City of Amarillo taxpayers are paying all the cost, not the other individuals. And so with this program, Anthony and Casey and their team have done a great job of going to these boards, and they have agreed tentatively to come to some terms with us in order so that they can pay their fair share of the cost on a pro rata basis based off their populations with that. So with this, looking at both slides, my recommendation would be option 1, which is an easy one. It makes total sense. Option 4, the full cost recovery. Option 5, a modest increase. And option 6, we continue with that. But at this point here, I'm not recommending option 2 or 3 unless council directs otherwise.
So a couple questions on EH. Currently, tattoos not being inspected, tattoo parlors.
Anthony, if you could please come forward.
This would be an additional program that you guys would be recommending?
That's correct, Mayor. It's currently regulated by the Texas Department of State Health Services, but they have one inspector from Dallas up to far north Amarillo. Tattoo body piercing facilities rarely get looked at.
Okay.
A lot of local entities are having their own programs.
TDLR as well, right?
Maybe
They're
on
not
the
licensed?
licensing side, but not on the actual facility side.
Okay. And then do you feel like this is pretty exhaustive like this is a good find in how we're utility billing those revenues, right? So the way you're taking the option 1, I think is definitely in line with balancing the budget. But then do you feel like this is pretty exhaustive? You've looked at other, and there's no other recommendations out there as it pertains to EH and the way you guys bill for your services?
We're pretty limited on our food and hygiene program. That's 60% of our entire department. And there's been some state legislation out there that's limited how we can cost recover that. I think I can do a little better on recreational water, realign some program expenses to help cost recover that program a little better. I think our two biggest swings, in my personal opinion, is option 1 and option 2. We could essentially recover our entire department by those two options.
On the recreational water, is that something that's mandated by the state?
The swimming pool and spa, it is a state law, yes, that's correct.
Does the state provide that service in some form or fashion?
They don't in areas with local jurisdictions, so they essentially give it to us. If we were to give it away back to the state, I'm not sure if they could pick that up. Again, they're very limited in staffing.
Do you know what the current expense is on that?
On that program entirely?
Yes, sir. I think you had it separated out at one time. I'm just curious. And then is there a potential to go to a responsive protocol versus a calendar or a proactive? So you guys have to work the entire list. So new hotel comes online, new recreation pool, let's say, public pool. You guys are inspecting everything. A lot of time expensed for that. Is there a way to make that responsive so you guys allow for the public to operate with kind of good behavior, good results, but at the point where there's a complaint or an incident, then it becomes something that you guys would oversee? And would the state allow that?
I think anything's possible, but not one I would essentially recommend. That program has a lot of enforcement action that it's taken in there. We often see water chemistry out of balance, electrical hazards, drowning hazards. Pool permits typically get suspended quite often. I think if we go to a responsive position, we would respond all the time. We would essentially be running a program.
And you see those even though those are going through building safety and,
Absolutely.
and inspections?
All the time.
Okay. Do you have some data? Because I think it would help for us to be able to address this in the future. Do you have some data on incidents or like, so you have I don't even know if it would be just a chlorine burn or whatever where there have been, because I think the feedback that I get probably from more of the hoteliers and some of those pool operators is that they're being regulated. They've never had an incident. We really don't need this level of local regulation. They're already being regulated enough as it pertains to their other business.
I mean, we could probably come up with some sort of data. We have violation data that I could pull fairly easy to show the number of times the facility has been marked for a certain number of violations.
I think that would be helpful, especially if we're looking at increasing the budget or the fee to perform that regulation. We need to be able to show the public safety aspect for sure.
I will also tell you this, due to state law changes, so a lot of hotels serve food as well, and their food costs used to be one of the higher ones because it was based upon the size of the facility. Due to state law changes, that has gone down tremendously. So they will see quite a bit of savings on the food side. So if you increase it on the recreational water side, there will still be a net savings to a facility.
Okay. Does any other municipality operate without breaking out their revenues like this? Are they ever somewhat encapsulated and grouped together and then billed accordingly in a percentage?
For a hotel?
Well, you do a really good job of breaking out fee structures for each independent thing you're looking at and
It's
then
difficult.
billing those.
Sure.
You don't have any global fee, so to speak, that you could pay for as an entity where it would just be
Per property.
simpler.
Correct. I would say all my colleagues across the state, it's all environmental health programs are ran this way. It's
Okay.
per program.
Thank you for letting me deviate on that. Appreciate it.
Quick question on the grease trap. So how does that? Tell me the benefit. So we're not generating any more revenue out of this. We're just shifting it. What's the advantage of doing that?
Well, like right now, the revenue is going to the utilities, but not to the general fund. So this would be a new revenue stream in the general fund.
Okay, but it's not netting us as a total organization anymore.
Again, today's focus is general fund, property tax base, and so today's exercise is on that. So yeah, it would be a deduct from utilities, But again, the focus today is about trying to address the property tax subsidy.
Yeah, and the expense, where's the expense on that recognized?
Environmental health, general fund.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why this makes sense to me, is the expenses in general fund, the revenue is in utilities.
Thank you.
That's how it's explained to me, so. So with this, I'm sorry I stepped out for a minute there. My recommendations were options 1, 4, a modest 5, and 6. And then was there some direction possibly on 3? Maybe some more information coming back, or did that not go anywhere? I'm sorry.
No, I think I'm good on 3. I think you're not recommending it, and so we
Correct.
just move forward. I asked for a little additional information as it relates to recreational waters.
Very good. So 1, 4, 5, and 6 we'll bring back to you all for a resolution. All
Why
right.
not, Grayson, why not 2?
Yes.
Why not option 2?
Well, I'm mostly just taking my guidance based off the last budget workshop and the concern council had with putting things on the utility bill.
If I could speak to that real quick, I think just colleague to colleague, I want to continue to stress that the utility bill, the water bill, is a dangerous, slippery slope to start putting fees on. So as a regulatory body, right, we administer all sorts of core services that are regulated by the state, so we can only raise tax this much. When we put a fee on a utility bill, it's totally unregulated, meaning we can say it's 50 cents year 1, but we could turn around year 2 and raise it to $5. Now, I'm not saying we would ever do that, but that is what the appearance looks like, I'd say, to our constituents in general. And so, like, the street fee was the one we were really looking at. The mosquito or the vector control is pretty small, and I do see a lot of benefit in the vector control and having that maintained. But I'm just leery until you get to your last resort, where this is what it's going to take to run the city. I hate to allow for the thought process that we would go back to a utility fee and just put an extra fee on your water bill. And it really is something that is an easy target for taxpayers to shoot at, myself included. I want to see accountability in finances. I want to know you did everything you could and you ran your budget super tight before you ever just find the solution, which is, well, if I can't raise your taxes, I'll just put a bill, a fee on your water bill. And then there is that single mom of 3 out there where, an extra $10, $15 a month bill is, that's lunch for, one of those kids going to school. So that's where we've been. Do we want to redirect, or are we okay to look at that as the very last option?
And the vector program could be one that council could consider dropping entirely altogether. So I'm not sure what regulations are with that, but again, if you're looking at ways in order to save cost, you could say that could be an easy one, $313,000 that the city could not spend right there. So
This would be one of those, like that Les brought up, it's not one of the core functions. So this is one that is droppable.
You think keeping people safe from mosquitoes is not a core function?
I'm sorry, that was Les Simpson
No, I
that
didn't-
stated
that
that,
was-
not Don Tips.
yeah. But again, I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying that could be an example of one you could do. So moving along for fire, again, full cost recovery is not feasible given the nature of what they do. So looking at some targeted ideas. So the chief and his team gave me 4 options for this one here for y'all to consider. An update to the fire marshal's inspection and plan review fees. Again, introducing a tiered or risk-based charges based off of higher risk. And so if you have a more higher risk occupancy, they should perhaps pay more than those who have lower risk. And then add reinspection fees for those who are continually having trouble getting them passed. And so instead of the taxpayers having to pay to send an inspector back over and over again, the person who is not getting it right will pay those fees. Option 2, third-party insurance billing. So I want to stress extraordinary cost. There are situations we come across that require a certain level of response above normal for fire and for fire service. And so whether it's hazmat, whether there's some insured loss, auto collision, there are certain things that are a bit beyond normal. And so the thought here would be to pursue insurance companies and who or the responsible party to help pay those costs. And again, this would be avoiding billing routine calls. I know we're not going to send a bill to every citizen for every time the fire shows up. This is extraordinary situations. And so not many people have a hazmat call. This is a unique situation. Option 3, graduated false alarm fees. We do tend to have individuals who have alarm systems who do have a lot of false alarms. And so then we respond, because you don't want to be the entity that does not respond, and you should have been there. But there comes a point of responsibility and accountability. If your system continues to give false alarms over and over again, it shouldn't be the taxpayer's responsibility to come every time because you won't fix your system. And so the encouragement here is to add fees so that it encourages those. If you're not going to fix your system, then you're going to pay more every time we have to show up and it's a false alarm. Every time that squirrel runs across there, I'm sorry, the $1 million fire truck shouldn't show up every time. Option 4, special event standby charges. Full cost recovery for optional standbys at private events or high-risk operations. And so there are times we are requested to do standby services that shouldn't necessarily be free. And so if we are going to provide standby services, it'd be reasonable for that entity, that program, to maybe cover some of the cost to have a unit standing there for that. I did that in my last community. We had standby service for ambulances and fire trucks and police. And so we did that. If you want, the taxpayers shouldn't necessarily be subsidizing a private event security and so forth. With this, again, as Councilor Simpson addressed, some of these would require some careful explanation, education, and so forth. Again, we're not just going to just throw the fee out there and just let it swim. We're looking at a lot of explanation here, but I would recommend all 4 options in this situation here.
I would just like to speak to the third-party insurance billing. We've been involved in several instances where this occurs, and that can get into, $5, $6, $7 million on a big hazmat issue, and for us not to be able to recover that would be very detrimental.
Yes.
And I'm guessing third-party billing, that's not something we're going to put in the budget.
Third-party.
No, we don't know whether it's going to happen or not.
And there are potential service providers that'll just take a percentage to actually do the billing for it versus us having to hire staff and bill insurance agencies. So there's some options out there.
But are you saying like put a revenue figure in the budget for that? Because the unknownness to that?
Correct.
Yeah. We could do some reasonable historical analysis to see what it would have been if we had this in the past, and maybe put a figure to that. But this is one where it may be best to leave it low and see how history going forward gives us on that. Okay. And it may take us more time than we have to actually get this thing figured out as well. So,
all right, thank you.
All right. Internal audit, again, this is more of an FYI for the council. This department does not produce revenue. It is strictly a cost department, but they have been busy trying to find ways, as the Councilor Simpson addressed, to try to find ways to cut costs. And so one thing that implemented already this year, just for your awareness, is we were paying for a third-party service to do hot audits. But we have taken that over, and we're saving about $100,000 a year to do that ourselves. And so Unil Gerber and his team are doing a great job of now working with hotels. And from what I've seen, based on the information that's been given to me, our staff is a bit more friendlier than I think the third parties were. So the hoteliers have more enjoyed working with our staff. Because our staff, they show up, they go on site, they work out arrangements and so forth. So this has been a good thing for us. So this is a already implemented cost savings for the city, just for your awareness. IT, again, this is not a revenue generating department, but this is a critical component of our city. And so there are a few things they're going to be doing. Again, they do not provide frontline service to the citizens. They are purely inward facing. They provide the backbone for all of the departments to operate. With this, they're looking at 2 things to help kind of adjust how money is being allocated in the budget. First one is IT is looking at re-examining their fee model. So IT bills departments based off of their usage, based off of their hardware, software, the demand, and so forth. Looking at general fund, utility fund, drainage fund, so that they want to make sure that's properly aligned so that non-general fund departments are paying appropriate share of the cost for IT, not being heavily burdened in the general fund. So they're working on that. That's currently in works for them. And also kind of similar to the Public Safety District, Environmental Health, and WIC and Public Health Department. But they're looking at the regional radio system cost sharing. We do assist other entities with radio systems, but we want to make sure that they're paying their fair share as well. So Misty and her team are going to be reevaluating what we're billing these entities, these other government entities, to make sure that they're covering their pro rata share of the cost. So again, IT is working on ideas to help make sure that appropriate revenue from other entities are coming in for that radio program, as well as we're making sure that the general fund is being billed fairly versus other departments. So no action, I would say, for council. This is one that I think, as manager, I've already tasked staff with doing because it just makes sense. Library, again, not full cost recovery is not feasible. So again, looking at targeted adjustments to improve fairness and cost recovery while, again, preserving access to individuals. And so library is one of those quality of life programs that is there for all individuals of all capabilities and all economic statuses. And so that is one of the charters of libraries across the nation. It's being open and available for all individuals, no matter how much money you make every year. So with this, they did identify 3 that I brought forward to you. They identified a few others that they brought to me that I think I had in my report that were a bit more challenging. So I brought these 3 to you today, and I do recommend all 3 here. First one is whenever we have material that's damaged, we do ask the person to pay for that. If you borrowed a book and you destroyed the book, you should pay for that book. When you have a more newer book, we kind of know what the value of the book is. But we do have a lot of material that's been there for a long time. And so what is the value? So we have what's called a default replacement price, that if we don't know what the value is, we'll charge a default price. That's not changed since 2005. So the thought here is to update that value in order to make sure that we're keeping up with current market. Option 2 is copier and mobile printing charges. I know these are small things for this here, but again, we try to bring to you all the different options we're working on and recommending. We are increasing to 20 cents per page. I think it was like 5 cents before, but the actual cost is, 15 cents before. Actual cost is like 19 cents or so. So we're going to look at doing 20 cents per page. Again, we're trying to bear in mind the clientele and their ability to pay, but at the same time, cost recovering these services here. So a 5 cent increase per page for that. And then lastly, non-resident card fees. Libraries are open to all. And so even individuals who are not living in Amarillo paying taxes in Amarillo. So with this, we do charge non-residents a card fee to use a library. We've not changed it in a number of years. And so doing some math, staff calculated that our library, given current budget, it costs about $21.26 per resident. Our current non-resident fee is $18 per individual and $33 per family. So the proposed increase here is to $25 individual, $45 per family, to make sure that non-residents are recovering more from them, to make sure we're covering costs there. With this, I recommend all 3 options for this. In fact, option 2 is already in the works to this, unless council says otherwise, but I recommend all 3 options.
Grayson, I have a question.
Yes.
Non-resident card fees, when were those last increased?
Amanda, do you know the answer to that?
Morning.
Good morning.
It would have been prior to 2015.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Amanda. Municipal court, another FYI. Municipal court is an example of a department that exceeds its cost of the revenue. Now, you look at, in the grand scheme of things, municipal court is directly tied to police and other services, so that revenue is going towards court-related expenses. And so, but with this, we were not looking at, this is not a situation where we're trying to realign revenues with costs, but at the same time, what are things we can do differently or better? First one is actually on your agenda today, later this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Staff went to work looking at our processing fees and identified that we were being charged 9% processing fee for credit cards. We've renegotiated that to lower than 3%. That is nearly a $300,000 savings based off current usage of credit cards. On top of that, we would like to suggest that given we're down to now lower than 3%, we would like to now recoup that 3% through a fee to the user of the credit card. Before we were eating that cost. So our recommendation is basically go from 9 down to basically 0 almost. And so that would be a recommendation for the credit card usage fee. That's a common practice in entities across the nation is if you use a credit card, there's a fee to use a credit card, and the user pays for that. Last one here is a staff have actually already implemented this, but they want to make you aware of it. They have done a new docket call for self-represented defendants. Basically, this is more efficient, and so there's a process they put in place that allows us to along the way get involved with these individuals, and then get things decided earlier or smoother in the process. So then there's some cost savings through back end. If instead of having it all hit at the very end, we're doing it along the way, it's a little more efficient. So with this, for these two things, again, item number 2 there is already implemented. Item number 1 is on your agenda today, and I recommend approval of that later today.
Okay. On that one, we allow other payment options.
Yes.
So we'll take checks or money order, whatever.
Yes.
Okay. And then can we go back to library real quick? Did you have something further on that one?
I just wanted to have clarification if we're moving forward with the 3. I know option 2 is already in place, but what about option 1 and 3? Are we moving forward with those?
That was my recommendation. I didn't hear otherwise from council, so I'd be moving forward with option 1 and 3, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any concerns on option 3, the non-resident card fee?
No, not at all.
All right. Thank you.
Very good. Parks and Recreation, I'm going to break them up into a few different divisions. Golf, this is a success story, and it is a success story. Looking at the history, this was actually, I enjoyed looking at this one here because it brought me more up to speed of what the history of golf has been. You go back to about 5 or 6 years ago, the general fund subsidy was $1.9 million. The council at the time said, let's jump rates up. When they did that, it was more of a cliff climb, and talking to staff, we lost golfers. And so they exited from us. And so we ended up having a higher subsidy the next year to $1.9 million. So since that time, the golf division, under Michael Kashuba's leadership, has been systematically increasing fees, keeping up with inflation costs, moving the golf ball price up, looking at things that gets us more towards cost recovery, things that the golfers could find palatable step by step by step. So we have gone from $1.9 million subsidy to $370,000 subsidy, and the trend so far this year that staff have relayed to me is we're going to be even less than that this year if trends continue for the rest of the fiscal year. So with this, they've done things, again, they've incremented fees over time so that the golfer community can absorb them more easily without exiting us and vacating us. This is one of the things where we have to be sensitive to the clientele. If you increase prices too much, you lose them, and your subsidy is even greater because your costs are still fixed. You still have to have certain costs to exist. They've done things like new programs like Happy Hour, Explore the 4. They've been re-examining their staffing. They've been looking, okay, is this staff person correct or is this position correct? So talking to Kashuba and his team, they've been re-examining their staff structure there. And they've been doing targeted capital improvements. I know one of the things we looked at recently was pump stations and so forth to make sure that we're doing things that further the goal of the golf course. So now, because the thing about golf courses, of all the things that you do as a city, golf course is one that can be and is private sector in our community. So this is one of the things that councils, I'm sure in the past, have looked at that should we or should we not be in the business of doing this? And so if we're going to continue to be in the business, we should be cost recovery because others are doing that. And so with this, our recommendation is there's not to make any additional changes here today, but to allow staff to continue their process of marching us towards cost recovery step by step. And based off what the trajectory they've given us, it does look like we should hit neutrality in the next year or two or so. So again, I can't give you, I don't have a crystal ball. I cannot tell you what it will be like this upcoming fiscal year, but it does, the trend is there. we have been systematically marching towards cost recovery. So at this point here, I would not recommend a definitive change from council, but to allow staff and to empower staff to continue to make those changes as they've been doing. Yep.
You've got on here continued steady approach of gradual fee adjustments. I mean, it seems pretty arbitrary. I mean, is that just to get to cost recovery?
Yes. Again, that's following the same pattern from 1.9 to 370. So they've been doing that every year, looking at costs, looking at pricing for merchandise, looking at food, looking at membership fees, what's the market doing. They've been looking at the whole spectrum, and then they've been increasing fees. I think the council even approved a fee increase this last budget cycle. So they bring to you ideas to get you to that next step, to keep the golfers interested and involved without losing them.
And I'm guessing we've done, just like we do in every area, what are our, not peers necessarily, but the other golf courses, our municipal golf courses are incredible. Mm-hmm. They ranked, top in the nation. So where are we on that? Kashuba,
Michael, is he here? Yeah,
how do we compare to the private courses,
I don't have the specific numbers, but I would say we are lower than a lot of our competitors. Again, we've got really great courses. One of the things that obviously council approved a fee increase as a part of the last budget. The challenge with golf and with a lot of our programming is we won't see that till right about now. We'll start seeing those fees take effect March through the end of the fiscal year. But right now the trends are very positive. We've gone up 12,000 golfers in the last 2 years, which is a very positive thing. And that's where we start to see that revenue and that cost recovery increase. So again, we're seeing a continuous growth on the golf side in terms of attendance. We're also seeing now that we're actually covering and exceeding the cost on the golf course improvement fund. So that's actually money that will be used to make more improvements in the golf course and continue to make it better. So,
and a lot of this is dictated by weather. We've been pretty blessed this year. So I'm guessing we had a whole lot more golfers, right?
But we've seen a trend. So 18-19, we had 67,000 golfers. Last year, we ended up with 98,000. So we've seen a continual trend. Again, George and his staff have done a really good job. We saw significant increases in those prices, and we did see a pretty good dip in golfers. But we're seeing that consistent trend upward, which is what we want. Slow, steady growth.
So you said we're lower. As far as you think that we're lower, is there harm in taking a little bite of this and getting us there? I know George is doing a phenomenal job, probably one of the best. But still, when we're talking about other, taxpayers subsidizing the ones who are actually using it, why would the users not pay?
Again, clarification, our plan is to bring to you back a fee increase this budget cycle. And so again, we didn't bring it to you today, but staff will be bringing back to you the next stage of that incremental increases for the next budget cycle. And that's my understanding, is it not, Michael? Yep. So we will be bringing back to you a fee increase, but again, it's part of our budget process we've been doing there. So.
Okay.
Did I hear correctly, 68 to 93,000?
Yeah, we were 67,000 in fiscal year 18-19, and fiscal year 24-25 we were at 98,000.
With the increases, with the improvements.
And I think that's one of the things that we've been trying to manage is continuing the growth of rounds of golf while also increasing those fees. I think the biggest concern, if you jump fees too much, then the golf rounds drop, and so you end up back where you were. So I think George has done a good job of kind of keeping the golfers happy, continuing to move towards cost recovery, and still increasing those rounds of golf.
This is one of those times when you have to make the hard decisions, and if we're doing it across the board and we're doing cost recovery, we don't want to make money on it. We just want to cover the cost. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why we would allow one group to not recover cost when we're requiring every other group to recover cost.
No, I agree. Again, we're heading there, and so I think we're getting to that point very soon.
But we don't have the luxury of time. We have so many things that the city needs, and it is my recommendation that we recover the cost if we're going to do it. We haven't touched it since 15 at the library, 05 on something, and as we just go back, this is an incredible exercise in efficiency that we need to continue, and it is my recommendation that we cost recover all things. We don't pick winners and losers in cost recovery.
Yep. So as part of the budget process, we can look at that. I know the staff is going to bring, again, the 370 was last year's subsidy. We do plan to have a lower subsidy this year. And so my goal would be when you get the budget this year, we will have a fee increase attached to that. And we can definitely try to bridge that extra little gap there to try to do that full cost recovery. So we can work towards that.
I would say, I mean, I understand, but this is a department that's done it right. You know, I don't know if I'd want to be messing with any one of I mean, I think we're heading there. Because again, you know, to me, the key on this, and of course, this is the last budget that we'll have a shot at, this council will have a shot at. To me, the most important, incremental annual fee increases. I think I would start looking at that across the board, because if you do it incrementally every year, as opposed to these other things where we haven't, you know, increased something in 10 or 15 years, it makes it easier to absorb. It doesn't stand out as much. So I think they've done a good job here. But I would say these other fees that we're looking at, it should be something that we're looking at every year to keep pace with the cost, because if not, we're just going to be back in the subsidy game again.
Yep. So we'll bring back to the council the fee structure for the fee adjustment for this upcoming budget cycle, and then at that time we can see, do we believe that recommended fee increase for the strategy would bridge that final gap, or if not, if council wants to take that extra step and discuss, will that cause a deficit because people leave, or do we think that they won't do that? So we will work towards that. Tennis. Again, we have been making current progress on that. The council just recently approved a new tennis instructor contract. We're leasing this out to an individual. This contract, as I understand from Michael, it does a better job of defining incentive base, to where the more revenue she brings to us, the greater the incentive it is to her. And so we've been seeing some great trends so far this fiscal year already. So we do believe that this department with this new contractor is heading in the right direction for cost recovery for this. And so with this, I would once again recommend that we allow the existing process that council recently approved to start playing itself out as we start heading towards cost recovery in tennis. Athletics, a few other ideas that we have for Parks and Recreation and cost recovery. A few things here that I'm going to let council decide on what they want to do with. One is to expand field and facility rentals, broaden the access for associations and leagues to all use the assets. Two, develop new or expanded sports offerings, and so we can look at other recreational things we can offer to the community as a new revenue stream to provide our citizens. Again, using existing staff to try to manage that as best we can. And option three is to discontinue the Kids Inc. payment of $36,000 annually. We currently provide all the work in order to maintain those fields, but we also, on top of that, subsidize them $36,000, and they're the only entity that we're giving revenue to like this. And so these are all three options for the council to consider. They all come with complications based off, I know from council conversations I've had one-on-one. So with this, I would seek council direction on any of these three options. But
I'll jump out there. So option three on the discontinuing of the payment to Kids Inc. I know we had looked at that previously. We were still relying on them to perform and do some things that was benefiting us as a city and some of the stuff that they were doing. I believe our conversation was to get the new Kids Inc. Program up and going, let them build their facilities, and then revisit that. So I would just ask not to look at that.
Sure.
In this current year. Maybe you put that on a 27-28.
Sure. I was unaware of that information, so yes.
Well, and I think it's good that you guys are looking underneath every rock. Also, once again, as we're going through all these, I think it's going to be really important to have those actuals so that we can see, are we already at cost recovery on golf? We may be, we don't know. So if we're not, then I definitely, if we've got a $3 increase, maybe it only needs to be $1.25. So those incrementals, like if we can just continue to go back to those actuals once we get there. But the other expanded sports offerings and some of those other things that are more conceptual, I wouldn't want to give kind of a blanket agreement of move forward. I would want to hear more. So identify those, bring them to us, let us understand the impacts before we pull that lever.
So this point here, I think that could be the direction we take on that item here, but otherwise, I would not bring these three forward otherwise. And so, lastly, for Parks and Recreation, some cost savings here that they gave to me. Some cost reduction opportunities or some realignment opportunities here. Some no-mow habitat areas, and so we do know we have a large area of land that we manage as Parks and Recreation, and so it probably requires some ordinance changes, but we can look at identifying areas that are off to themselves, that we, instead of mowing them every few weeks, letting them go back to more of a natural habitat. That would save cost and expense doing that. Two, as the council is aware, we've been working with our school partners to try to better define and better clarify our role and the school's role for maintenance of park land for city parks. I know Michael and Donnie have been working hard with ASD on that effort, and so they've had some meetings on that, and that's ongoing. So I have asked that we try to get that thing done this calendar year so we can finally put that thing to rest. And get more of a unified agreement because right now we have many agreements for many parks. Each one has its own flavor. So we'd like to kind of know what is our overall responsibility, and that can better define our expenses on that. So not necessarily an action for that today. And lastly, one you're already looking at, it'll be on your agenda today, the Amarillo Zoo lease. Again, we prepared this over a month ago, so thankfully it has happened to coincide. Today you have an agenda item today to officially lease the Amarillo Zoo to a nonprofit, a part of the Wild West Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. So that is one of those incremental steps of heading towards cost recovery. It won't be immediate cost recovery. As you know, in the budget, you will see a step down of $50,000 a year, but in about 5 or 6 years, assuming all goes well, that item will be gone from the budget.
I would like to just go back. Can we go back to the slide? I would really like to see the school park maintenance agreement in place within 90 days if we can get that done.
I cannot promise that based off interaction with the school. And so we've been working on it, and so there's challenges with getting some meetings scheduled, I guess. And so we're working on it, though. We're heading in a good direction, but I cannot guarantee you 90 days because I can't control the school in that. So, but I have asked staff, and I've also talked to Dr. Parrish. I've not talked to the CISD yet, but I talked to Dr. Parrish that it is my goal, my I'll say expectation that we get this thing done this year.
Okay. Can we at least get a cost of what that is costing us to take care of?
Is something you can work on, Michael, yet?
Yeah, we already have those costs because that's our landscape maintenance contract, so we could get those numbers very quickly.
But with this, I mean, I have no problem trying to push the school now that I have from council that you want this thing done immediately. From past experience, given this has been a problem for decades, and I'm talking to my staff from other predecessors, I think we've already gone far further, far faster than we've managed to accomplish in years past. I think good leadership right now from the ASD and our side is coming together to get this thing done. It's just we're trying to finesse this because they also have a budget they're trying to manage as well.
But the cost is coming to us.
Correct.
Okay.
But we will not drop that item. Planning, again, full cost recovery, not really realistic. Thank you, Michael. And so look at this, looking at some targeted fee alignments for direct cost. They've given me a few ideas here. And overall, I don't have for you today a fee adjustment yet. They would like to do a full comprehensive fee schedule review, looking at all their fees. They've already identified a few that are cost recovering based off, there are certain services that we provide developers and everyone else and that we feel that are already the fees covering costs, but there are some that we can tell are not. And so Cody and his team would like to take some time to revisit our fee schedule. This is something you should do every few years anyways to make sure that fees are keeping up with costs. And so I don't have a number to bring to you today, but I would say that I would recommend that the council be authorized that we do proceed towards a fee review schedule review, and then we'll bring back to you fee adjustments. It won't be massive dollars, I don't think, but it'd be something, again, every little bit counts, trying to make sure that we're cost recovering on user services. So unless council says otherwise, we will continue with that study towards bringing back fee adjustments.
I mean, it should be every year we should be looking at this, not every year, we need to be looking at these fees. It increases in our businesses, it increases in our homes. We should look at this every year.
Yeah, one thing I would say, some of our fees have a built-in inflationary built-in, like I said earlier, for one of the fees, 3%, and that's the same thing with building and safety, and so having an automatic fee adjustment in there. So I'd have no problem with doing something like that. Police, again, full cost recovery as department is unrealistic, so looking at specific areas, the shooting range. The shooting range serves both law enforcement entities as well as public, and so the public do go out there and utilize the shooting range, which is great. With this, our recommendation to the council would be to initiate a cost recovery on the public side of the spectrum. I mean, we have partners for law enforcement, and so we can try to cost recover, but that may drive away business there. But our recommendation at this point here is to try to cost recover on the public side of the usage for the facility.
So let me jump in there real quick. Go ahead, Councilman.
Just on the shooting complex, I've talked to staff at the complex. It's one of the few places in the city that we don't charge 18 and younger to go out there and use, which is that's 33% of their population. Mm-hmm. It is a huge draw for individuals on I-40 to go and shoot as they come through. A lot of foreign folks, a lot of international travelers. And so by all measure, we need, the staff is asking for it to be able to increase the service offering.
I agree.
On the shooting complex, could we get, and I think we could get it pretty easy as far as the wants and the needs out there. Definitely would like to look at changing the rates and the billables out there, but also improving facility. Mm-hmm. And so this is something where if we wanted to compete with private, because there are plenty of private, let's look at upgrades out there at the same time. And let's see if we can calculate an ROI on that, especially if we can go through some CIP monies and be able to find that is a good way for us to not only improve APD operations, but also for the public. Chief Loftus has a really good skill set, and he's currently heading up, I believe, most of that budget approach. So this council direction needed to proceed with a detailed cost analysis. Is that all internal, or do you have anybody else working on that?
I would lean to staff to head that up.
Okay, so that would be Chief Loftus, right?
I assume. Obviously, I would direct Chief Hover, and then Chief Hover would direct the staff from there.
Okay, but it's all going to be internal. I just wanted to make sure we house that inside of themselves, and that they take the lead on that. That we weren't relying on, maybe general metrics or third party.
No, I don't think they were going to do that. So,
okay.
But no, I think what you said prior to that last item there, I do think that yes, improvements become more realistic once we start to recover on the public side. I think that now that you have a revenue stream coming in, instead of tax dollars having to pay for those improvements. Again, so many CIPs, so many needs, so many ideas. But I think when you have a revenue stream coming in, that becomes more realistic. I think I would agree.
Okay, thank you.
Public Works, first off, solid waste, next street. Solid waste, when you look at collection and landfill as a whole, it does net positive between the two of them added together. But again, I went ahead and asked staff, okay, go ahead and do the exercise of looking at the landfill. Landfill is a negative net, and so it does cost us more than the revenue in order to manage the landfill. With this, there's a lot of considerations to be had with this. We do have competition in the area for landfills. We would recommend a modest 5 to 10% landfill tipping fee increase. Our concern, based off of conversations with vendors and so forth, is that given the market, if we begin to meet or exceed market, we will lose customers, which then increases the deficit. And so our recommendation here is to do a 5 to 10% landfill tipping fee increase in order to, again, move towards competitiveness with locals without giving the vendors too many good options to choose from. Again, I need them coming to my landfill, spending money there. I don't need them weighing, well, it's only $1 cheaper to go over here. It's only $1 more to go over there. It's closer, I'll go there. So if I get too close, you could see an excess of vendors, and that could be very detrimental to landfill. So that's my recommendation for that. Streets. Again, as with vector fee, you asked for all options. I brought you all options. I'm not recommending this option. But with this, again, the option here is a street maintenance fee on the utility bill. Again, you don't have to do the entire department. You can do targets toward like pavement markings, signal and sign maintenance, pavement repairs, and so forth. But again, given council discussion on this, I will not advance this one unless council clearly tells me to do this next year. Hearing no otherwise direction, I will assume we're not heading in that direction.
Thank you, sir.
Transit. As the council is aware this last year, one good thing, our population is increasing. The bad thing, it costs us more money now. We have been reclassified as a large urbanized area, so we lost over $2.1 million in federal assistance. That's almost half of the funding they were getting before. So with that, this current fiscal year was our first fiscal year where we had to subsidize that through general fund property sales and so forth. With this, 3 options that staff have brought forward to us. Again, you have to remember, transit services a very specific clientele. And so this is not a clientele that will allow us to cost recover. That's just the truth of the matter with that. And so with this, option 1 is obviously, we're always looking out for more grants, trying to look out for more options. So staff said there are a few things that we'd like to try to pursue to see if we can't recover some of those costs through grant programs. So that's always an ongoing, we're always looking for grants. In all departments, we're always looking for grants. So this is one we'd like to try to pursue. Option 2 is careful, fair adjustments. As I said, trying to bear in mind our clientele and what they can reasonably absorb. I don't believe we can realistically expect $2.18 million of revenue from our clientele. So with this, we've been looking at some reasonable, fair adjustments to try to help narrow that gap. And lastly, option 3, transit advertising expansion. As you go to some cities, you will see advertisement on the side of a bus or on their facilities and so forth. So one option here is to allow managed. Would have to be some policy tied to this because it is still public property, but allow for some external advertisement for a fee, obviously, on our facilities, including our buses. And so, but that had to be carefully vetted out, carefully thought through, because there are certain challenges, that come with opening up to everybody. So
I just want to speak to that briefly, and I think our rider participation and the way in which we compete across the state. So do not look at this bucket as a bucket that was emptied and then is not going to be filled back up. You will make decisions, council, on eliminating services or just pushing the cost share. And then as a whole, as a growing community that struggles with affordable housing and all sorts of issues, you need to be able to provide this service. And it may not be a true core service, but it is a vital service.
Correct.
And so as you look at that bucket, you need to look at it as though it can get bigger when you get qualified for additional grants. So our population growth has pushed us up into competing with larger cities. And so their rider participation demands more dollars, so ours was restricted. As we continue to put pilot programs in, partner with PRPC, look around the panhandle, and be innovative, which we have already done, our rider participation numbers will continue to look better and better, and we will see some additional grant funding coming. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, yes, I understand if you've got some incremental things, but maybe the best idea today we've heard is Councilman Tipp's face on the side of that ACT as it drives down, and I don't know, 25,000, maybe a good starting point, and then put a 3% increase on that annual with a 10-year contract. We're going in the right direction. So I think you guys are working well. I just want to make sure we look at transit as a particular item. It's not necessarily like we can look at tennis, right?
And Mayor, you said it correctly. Every one of our departments has a uniqueness that makes it difficult when it comes to just blanket decisions. And so there is while there are certain citizens in our community that don't use a certain service, there's always someone who does. And so we have a very diverse community. We serve all the citizens. And so just because one person thinks I can do without something doesn't mean I can actually do without that thing for someone else. But I think you're exactly right. Transit has a very uniqueness to it that we have to be very mindful of. So I would recommend all 3 options in this situation. Utilities, again, not a general fund, but they did participate in the exercise as well. And so this is some ideas. Again, this won't impact the general fund, but given utilities is such a large component of our budget, and given we are going to be increasing our rates for wastewater treatment plants, it's always good for staff to be looking at how do we increase revenue for specific users who use certain services so that we can maybe diminish that rate increase when the wastewater treatment plant comes online. So a few ideas that staff have brought for you today is the increased TAP administration fee to cover inspection costs. Right now, that based off staff review, the utility ratepayer is paying to subsidize the inspection fees for TAP fees. Create an industrial waste permit fee for sampling, site visits, and compliance monitoring. So again, for industrial users to absorb. Right now, our residential and commercial users are absorbing the cost above what our fees are for doing site sampling and compliance for industrial waste permits. Address septic dumping and manifest fees, so to better cover costs. And then decouple an environmental laboratory fee from the ordinance, and then that will allow staff to make adjustments based off of environment and regent fees, and things that are going on in the environment. So, with this, I would recommend all four options for our utilities so that they can better manage their revenue to help us as we look forward to our utility rate increases increasing for the wastewater treatment plant. We're almost to the end. Vital statistics. This department has a small subsidy, $18,000 gap in the budget. As I said earlier on, this is one area that state law says thou shalt not touch the birth and death certificate fee. So if I have a subsidy there, I got a subsidy there. That's just what the state has said. They don't really care about it, whether we can float. They just like getting elected up there. And so with this, cost recovery options, looking at non-refundable search fees when a record cannot be located. And so right now, if you come in and you're requesting a search and you can't find anything, you're not charged. But it still costs us to do that search. And so instead of only positive searches getting charged, all searches getting charged. That way, if you request a service and manpower is used, there's an expense, there's a fee tied to that. Ensure city recoups state fees associated with searches so we do have certain fees with the state that we have to pay. We want to make sure that we want to add a fee to make sure that we recoup those costs for those searches instead of the taxpayer eating those costs. And then cover ancillary charges like postage and handling. So looking at our fees and make sure that those fees, we apply a postage fee to cover those costs if mailing is required for that. So for all three of these, I don't know if we would fully cover the $18,000 cost, but I think this is one where we could once again get to full cost neutrality for this division. And I recommend all three options in this situation.
So I definitely would not speak for council, but I would speak to try to persuade council not to take these up, just because the $18,000 gap is the smallest thing that we're looking at. Our time and energy is going to be better spent on much larger items. This, even though it is a small subsidy, I just think it goes to our customer service pillar, and you're just looking at additional time and energy spent with, these are taxpayers that are already paying their taxes. And so I think they're going to look at this the wrong way. So, council, can you give direction, get a consensus on whether we want to move forward with this or not?
Again, where do you make the choices? I mean, it is 18, but you do 18 times 10, do 18 times 20. I mean, at what point do you choose? So, if we're in a cost recovery thought process, then everything should be looked at.
So in favor.
Okay. So, I mean, why just let me get clear. Why would we not do that here versus what we're doing in other places?
I think we just discussed it on transit and how, like, we do provide certain services throughout the city that are just involved in a general fund offset. And so it's a subsidy. It's not and we're being mandated to do it. So, I mean, it's a standalone. It's separate. Yes, ma'am.
Clarification too, Andrew, thank you for this. This is not just Amarillo residents using these services. These are These are Texans, Nebraskans, New Yorkers, people from other countries. So there are some of these fees will be recouped from non-Amarillo tax-paying residents that we're currently not recouping.
Okay.
Do you have any idea how the fee structure would be set up? Would it be just based on time that it took for a search to take place? Are a lot of these searches available online? I mean, what does that look like?
Is Jennifer here, or Stephanie, do you have some?
So I can speak to that. They have to use a specific system that the state of Texas provides. And so when they do a search in that system, it's costing. So it's not
It costs
anything
us to
that anyone
access
else.
that system?
It does, yeah.
Oh, so it's not public record?
No, it's not something if you want your birth certificate, you can't go out and search for it and find Don Tipp's birth certificate.
If I want a permit
You're-
to see if a permit has been pulled,
That's different.
That's
That's
different.
different, yes.
For
this is a
For vital
search.
statistics, we were just talking about search of birth certificates and death certificates.
Okay,
So,
thank you for clarifying.
So we've got one in favor, one against for this year. Council, would you just want more information to be brought back later? We could make this decision at budget, maybe after we get some actuals, you know. I don't know. I like looking at things departmentally, of course, but then I don't feel like we're being 100% cost recovery. We are taking into account that there are items that we perform that are not cost recovery, vector program being another one.
Is there any, just make sure, we're just charging the minimums in these areas, or?
Maximums, according to
We're
state
not
law.
charging at all.
We're charging, like for the search fee, we charge if we find something, not if we don't find something. But we still had to pay a fee to access to look for that. And so, but right now we're eating that cost. But there's some of these things here. In the second item, again, we're not charging that one. And the third one, the civic charge, this is more for postage and handling. So that's when you could drop off, because that's a little more of an arbitrary one. But the first two are a little more precise because there's a fee associated with that.
I'd be fine with looking at it.
Okay. Bring it back. Direction for right now would just be to bring it back. I think look a little further into it once we get closer to budget.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right, that was everything, and we tackled them all as we went. So I don't think I need any more guidance unless council wants to revisit anything. But I think we have covered every department, and it is 12:15, and so unless council has more.
One question. Will we be able to see with the direction given today? Do we have any idea what those dollars, the total sum of those dollars is?
Yeah, so I'll be bringing it back to you in the budget. Again, my next step, I asked staff, we didn't go into a full depth calculation, and so my goal as part of the budget process, not to get out of line here, but with the process, but stay in our current form, to bring those back to you as part of the budget, but we can line item those for you all, so you know, okay, we did the math, we looked, we did the analysis. This is what this fee, animal management, vector, whatever, or not vector, but vital, whatever it is, produces. And so I would recommend, Councilor Tips brought this up earlier, I will bring those numbers back to you as part of the budget process.
Thank you. One last thing, Kashuba, I love what you do. I promise you, I love what you do for the parks. So thank you. It always seems like we come back and forth on the golf deal, but I really appreciate what you do.
I do have one more thing. How much empty space do we have in this building?
Andrew, can you speak to that? Maybe Jerry?
Jerry probably knows better. It's around 40,000? 50? 35.
35,000?
With the basement and a couple other floors.
Right. So are we looking at consolidating some of our office, city office space, like the Sims building, bringing employees over here and closing down that operation?
We've had lots of discussion on that. And so, again, departments are located with departments that they interact with. And so to pull one is to pull four. And
Right.
so it's trying to manage, okay, can I fit all four or all five or all six over here? So Angie and I have had many conversations about this. If I pull this one, what does that do to the efficiency of that department? And so a lot of our departments are located in areas where they can be efficient with each other. I get it. We're all downtown, but at the same time, it's more efficient to walk across the hall than have to go across to the downtown every there. So, but again, that's the problem we're up against is there's not quite enough square footage to bring all that need to stay together.
And the initial goal wasn't to fill the space up immediately. It was to allow for growth potential in the future 10, 20 years out as well.
Very good.
Any
We
other
did
questions
talk-
from council?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was going to say, we did, along those same lines, we've talked about EDC, we've talked about some other
Yes.
entities that we're paying rent that maybe we bring them in-house. I mean, so
Correct.
those things are being looked at.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's I know that there's different opinion among council about that one, but that is one area that I'd like to look into is maybe encouraging those partners to come join us.
Okay.
One other thing, I know we talked about animal welfare management, but as I look at these departments, I think Parks and Rec would be the only other department that I see that we have an advisory board to us. I don't know if any others would fall under that, but as we're, just like with animal welfare management, I think we should present what we're talking about to the Parks and Recreation Board
Yes.
as well, just to get their input, feedback.
Yeah.
They may think of something that we're missing. I don't know if any other of these departments have an advisory board, but if they do, I'd run that through them as well.
Yeah, like I said earlier, yes, the plan here, again, we're not going to start the fee tomorrow. The plan would be to start the process, because some of these fees are going to require good education, OEI involvement, notices to clients, board involvement, and so as we have a board, yes, this is, but I do want to, I'll bring a resolution back to you, probably the next meeting or the one after that. I would then task staff with starting those processes, because I don't want to wait till October 1st to do that. I want to get them moving so that when October 1st hits, we're in full stride.
So question on implementation of the fees. Do you have the intent to implement any of these additional fee increases prior to August 1st?
There would be case by case, possibly yes.
And so if we did identify a case that council wanted to move forward on prior to that, would you do that in the form of a budget amendment? And
No.
amend current budget? You would just do that in the
It
form of a
would be,
resolution?
I mean, we'll bring back to you one big budget amendment when it's all done, because these, by the time we implement these fees, again, given the realistic revenue they're going to produce, you'd be amending the budget for a few $1,000s, and that's not good use of your time.
Okay.
I would request, though, since we have advisory boards, I would like to get there. I would like to run those two things through them before it comes back to council.
Oh, yes, yes. Again, yes, we're going to run those departments that have boards, those ideas through those boards. Again, we're going to, when I bring a resolution to the council, it's going to state there that this is going to be explored and vetted.
Okay.
Not that it's going to be done.
Okay.
It's given me marching orders that I know officially that you've all voted on, because today you can't vote. But my goal would be to bring you an action item to where, okay, Grayson, go forth and explore these or do these or whatever it is. And then some of those will be a natural bring back to you all. So,
Grayson and just all the staff, thank you. This, to me, feels really healthy, feels really like we've done spring cleaning, like really got in and cleaned this up. And I look forward to it moving forward as we really tighten down where the monies are being lost.
thank you. Yeah,
Thank
no, all everything goes to my staff. I really appreciate it. They did all the work here. I just put it together in one report. So they did all the hard work doing this today. So I thank my entire team for everything they've done to get us to this point.
Well, I think you definitely have a strong team that supports you, and this is good leadership in setting us up for success as we move forward into this next budget cycle. And then I believe it all comes down to expectations. I think we are communicating very directly what we are asking for, and we look forward to letting you guys deliver on that. So thank you for your time today. Do you have anything further before we adjourn?
No, sir.
Okay. Greatly appreciate everybody being here. We won't delay anyone any further. I do see a couple citizens that are our taxpayers out here that don't work for the city, so I'll offer to hang back if you guys want to offer any feedback on your thoughts on today's meeting. And then at that, council, we are adjourned unless you have anything further. You're adjourned. Thank you.